Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the LASD School Board meeting. A recording and/or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, and the recording and/or broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. I will now take roll call. Vladimir Ivanovich.
Here.
Steve Taglio.
Here.
Jessica Spicer. Here. Brian Johnson.
Here.
And I, Rachel Circuit, am here as well. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, board members, would any of you like to provide comment on tonight's agenda? Okay. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? So moved. Thank you, Jessica. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented was made by Jessica and seconded by Steve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. As for closed session report, no action was taken in closed session tonight. Superintendent's update, Mr. Bear.
Yeah, just a couple of items. We're well into September now. The schools are up and running in full force. With the pleasure of attending the Gardner Bowles PTA meeting last week. There's some more PTA meetings coming up this week, so it'll be good to get out to see those as they're happening still in a combination of in-person and virtual. But those are coming along. Sandra, I assume you'll talk about PD probably at the end of some comments, so I will leave that for you. My other comment was going to be about pool testing, but that's actually within the second agenda item, so I'll just save it for that. Talk a bit about that as it opened up. It started today.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Would any board members like to provide comment on tonight's consent calendar? May I please have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Actually, I do have a comment. The Walden West went into the consent calendar. There is a typo in the Walden West. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's good.
I forgot to put that. Typo. Dividing to the number, page.
The dollar amount.
Yeah, it was a dollar amount on 3.6. It says 1,000, and then it roughly has something that looks more like 100 after it in numbers. So we need to add a 0 in there.
Yep, we'll get that rectified.
So I would move that we pass the consent agenda with that typo change.
Okay.
Is that good?
Thank you, Jessica. May I have a second, please? Thank you, Steve. Motion to approve tonight's consent calendar with the correction of the typo pointed out by Jessica was made by Jessica and seconded by Steve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. On to employee requests to address the board. Los Altos Teachers Association, Kate Shermerhorn.
Hi, good evening. We are now about 1 month into the school year. I was talking with my kids today and we decided the 1 month mark happened over the weekend. So we are moving and grooving. Teachers are looking forward to our PD this Friday, the 24th. We're excited to see what we have in store for us. And we are also appreciative of the pool testing that I know is starting this week. My class has their first pool testing session tomorrow. So I'm also very excited to see how that goes. LATA and LASD had their first bargaining session of the year, and we are excited to enter yet another year of close collaboration with our fabulous school district. On a personal level, I've been enjoying getting out to go see the different school sites. I was able to make it to Almond Elementary last week, and I will be heading towards Block tomorrow. So that's it for my update. It's a pretty light update, but thank you for the opportunity to address the board.
Thank you, Kate. The California School Employees Association, Elena Shea.
Hi, good evening. I'm Elena Shea. I'm the secretary at Covington and the vice president of CSCA. And we have been working hard, CSCA employees, supporting our students, teachers, and administration this school year. I want to echo Kate in being thankful for all of the COVID protocols that have been put in place this year to keep us all safe and healthy, including having everyone wear masks on campus. And I can confirm that pool testing started because it happened at Covington today. And so it's underway and everyone's noses are getting swabbed. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and have a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. All right, to provide public comments on an agenda item, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure your microphone is on. Requests received after public comment begins will not be accepted. All right. This time now is reserved for citizens and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make a brief comment or ask clarifying questions. Looks like we have
Might
three.
be good to verify.
Okay, so for public comment on non-agenda items, looks like we have Thaddeus and Anand. And just to clarify, you're making comments on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Right?
Ask the first one.
Okay. I'll just start with Thaddeus.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Is the outdoor masking one of the agendas? So I can't talk on the outdoor masking for the students.
It is on the agenda.
Item 2.
So I have to wait for that to talk about that, right?
Correct.
Okay, can I talk about, I'm going to talk about something in general. I'd like to make a comment on the responsibility of school board members. You know, there is a story, a narrative that is being portrayed on the news and in the media and everywhere else. That's been going on for 18 months. There is sufficient evidence right now that makes it clear that what we've been told about the entire pandemic is mostly untrue. And the harm that's been done because of the measures that have been taken and demanded of schools and businesses and citizens in general has been tremendous. The only populist effective resistance we have to such things is local governments that are not completely in the pay of big pharma and in the deep states pockets, like school boards. And so I'm not bringing up a particular topic, but when it comes to these measures that are supposed to be taken for public health, it's beyond doubt now that the purpose of the whole entire systems, the COVID system, has been for a variety of purposes that have nothing to do with public health, such as promoting an experimental vaccine, big pharma profits, and deep state power and control, essentially a totalitarian power grab. So I would just encourage you board members to, if you haven't done the research, listen to these callers that are going to be talking, and do the research on alternative media that isn't paid for by government, CIA, and big pharma, and do the right thing. If you don't do the right thing, you'll get applause for being a good virtue signaler and being someone for the child's health, but it won't be true. You'll actually be damaging the children's health and contributing to this facade. So think about God, think about judgment, think about your soul, and take the courage to go against the groupthink and the crowd and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to hear that one. What are you doing?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello? Oh, okay, thank you. I'm asking you to be more transparent with students when it comes to COVID. As it stands in my kids' school, the only way for kids to know officially that there has been a case is if I look it up on the dashboard and tell them. This is not to say that they won't know already. Since the school is not transparent with the kids, rumors spread like wildfire. Alex gave it to Lisa. Lisa then gave it to Karina at a play date. Now their entire class has COVID. That's what they tell each other. Kids notice when adults suddenly impose stricter distancing at schools. They notice when a class suddenly doesn't show up for 2 to 3 days. And they talk and convince themselves of a worst case scenario unfolding in school. All because the school doesn't respect them enough to give them the truth. Here's another thing my kid told me. Our class got an air purifier. They told us it's because of the smoke. But the teacher brings it close to wherever the students are gathered. They must think we're stupid not to know what it really is for. Our kids are smart. They've been living with COVID for a long time now. They understand and appreciate COVID news. Treat them with the respect that they are due. Tell them what's going on. They're making big sacrifices for the community every day in all they do to keep all of us safe. Let's repay that by being honest and truthful with them. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on. On to our action and discussion items. First up, Summer Academy report. Laura Wiley will report on the 2021 LASD Summer Academy. Ms. McGonigal.
Excellent. Well, I am thrilled to welcome Laura Wiley, who served as our summer school principal this past summer throughout the month of July. And she's here to tell us all. A few of you were able to visit, but not everyone. So Laura will tell all about summer school. And she really did, so you know, she did an outstanding job this summer. It was really incredible.
Yeah, super excited to be here this evening and share with you our very exciting and unique, different from the past summer academy that we had this summer to support students throughout the summer in a summer school program. This was a new kind of summer school. I mean, given the pandemic, we knew that there were going to be a different level of needs in our student populations, preparing them for what we were hoping and is turning out to somewhat be a normalish school year. So in the past, you guys might have remembered that they did more of it. It was called Challenger Camp. And it was a partnership with the YMCA where it was kind of like a camp day for students. And they were pulled out for about a 30-minute intervention class that was probably like, 4 to 5 students, really targeted reading intervention using the LLI curriculum that we often use in our schools as a tier 3. So the students attended this 30 to 40-minute small group reading class each day and then participated in other camp style programs. They had field trips and we really targeted our most at-risk students for that. This year, we decided to really make it more of an intensive academic program. It mirrored more of what our regular school day looks like. And we really wanted to work on filling the gaps, especially those gaps that were due to the pandemic, the virtual learning, the student engagement, and all those things. So we wanted to engage students in multiple content areas, reading, writing, STEM, and math. So we really focused on that, and we provided our teachers with curriculum, most that aligns or is aligned with our district curriculum we currently use. And not only did we really think about our most at-risk students, but we kind of went beyond that a little bit this year. We thought about those students who were affected more by the pandemic, maybe had low attendance in their virtual classes or so forth. So we really tried to include a greater range of populations. So one of the big questions, who qualifies for summer school? We looked really closely at reading data. We looked both at their winter reading level and their spring reading level as soon as that came in. And those are those Bounce and Pinnell benchmark assessments that we use. So it's really district-wide data that we can look at. We also took into account their trimester 2 report card data, specifically looking at math, since we were offering math along with the reading. And then principal input was equally as important, especially for those special situations where attendance was low, or maybe it didn't look like they were like drastically below grade level in any content area, but they could really use the extra support in the summer. We had multiple rounds for invitations being sent out. We started in about April, sending out our first round of invitations. And we really started with students who were far below grade level, really looking to see who those students were that we could really service in reading and writing skills and support them in math as well and provide a fun STEM experience. So each round, summer school invitations were sent out by email where students completed a digital form of whether they would come in or were declining for that summer. So here's a table kind of showing you each round, the number of invitations sent, the number of students who committed to attending Summer Academy, those that declined, and those that with much work did not respond. We also utilized our school secretaries to really contact those families to try to get those responses. So luckily that's the lowest number on our chart here. Some of the reasons for declining to attending was this summer, unlike the summer before, they could do a little bit more travel. So a lot of families chose to go and visit family or so forth. That was probably one of the biggest reasons I saw for declining. There was a little bit of nervousness around returning to fully in person, which with this summer school program was entirely in person. So there was just a handful, probably 1 or 2 students that parents just didn't feel comfortable with that. But we invited a lot of students and a lot committed, and we really ended up with a great range of students at our Summer Academy. We had students representing all 10 at the time of our school sites. And what was really interesting to look at was Santa Rita was our largest population presented of students coming from Santa Rita. And then it was followed up closely with Almond and the virtual school with 20% of our Summer Academy students coming from those sites. So it was really great. And those virtual students we provided a unique experience where it was their first exposure to in-person teaching and instruction for that school year. So our Summer Academy staff, we had 11 classroom teachers, and we had a couple new positions that kind of go beyond just that. We had a resource teacher, which was really fortunate. This resource teacher was able to push in to classrooms to provide more adult support. We took into account students' accommodations and modifications based on IEPs or 504s. So we were really able to continue a lot of those that we present to them during the school year, during summer school as well, just to guarantee them that extra boost and extra support that they deserve and need. We had 2 behaviorists on campus throughout. We also had 3 instructional aides. They were supporting in grades 1 and 2. This was really intentionally done to lower that number of students to teacher ratio in our primary grades, with our readers who are really learning those foundational skills, having that extra person in the classroom for small group, for that additional adult to read with and write with and so forth. So that was something that was, Sandra and I were very excited when we got to do that. We had 2 one-on-one aides, part of our summer program. We had 1 STEM support teacher, and then we were able to get 3 STEM volunteers who were high school volunteers who were able to come in and support during our STEM afternoons. So it was a really well-rounded couple of, we had our nurse there full time as well, and I had an amazing secretary to help me throughout the day too. So we overall had a great staff. A little about class sizes. You can see here we had 2 classes in 2nd grade, and we had 2 classes of a 7th, 8th kind of combo. We kind of just put those kiddos together. Our goal ultimately was to keep the classes below 20, and we achieved that. And then you'll see on the far side, right side, a comic class. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that As you can see, that only had 8 students. Those 8 students are also represented in the other numbers. They were pulled out for a specific class that I can't wait to tell you more about. But that was another class that we really were excited about. So now I'll tell you a little bit about the program. Overall, I think that it was such a successful summer. I am so thankful to the staff and the teachers who, after a very unique year of teaching, like took the opportunity and took advantage of really helping our students who needed the most during the summer. So I just wanted to give them a little shout out. So like I said, our school day really mirrored that of a normal school day. This schedule you see on this slide really represents our grades 1 through 3. And then I'll tell you a little bit how it's tweaked. But we wanted to start off each morning with community building. We knew that we were pulling kids from all 10 of our sites. And often those students didn't know each other, right? And you might have one student in your class, in your 3rd grade class, that you knew from Santa Rita, and there might be one Oak person or so forth. So we thought community building was very important. So we started each morning that way. Then we went into a reading workshop, and I'm going to get into a little bit more about the curriculum we used. And then in the 1st through 3rd grade, they really did some focused work around phonological awareness, high frequency words, phonics, all those foundational skills that we know are so important for our students who are learning to read to focus on. And then they did a 10-minute read aloud. The only difference there in the 4th through 6, was that they didn't do the skill review kind of phonics stuff, but they still did a read aloud and a little bit longer reading workshop. So their reading workshop might have looked more like 60 minutes. Then we had recess. You can see some of our primary kiddos there using chalk. Recess, we did stay in cohorts. So they stayed because we were following the same protocols that we ended the school year with. So at recess and lunch, they stayed with their classroom cohort. After recess, they went into a writing workshop and maybe a little bit more phonics work, followed by some math workshop, lunch, and then our afternoons were the most engaging, where they participated in STEM activities, and then cleanup and dismissal. So an 8:30 to 2 o'clock day, again, really mirroring that of a normal school day. We were able to utilize our instructional aides to provide duty for students at recess and lunch. So our teachers were able to have that duty-free time for planning or using the restroom, all those things, right, that they need their break for. So I really wanted to honor that, similar to the school year. Our 7th and 8th grade class, we had, like I said, 2 classes. They were 7th and 8th graders combined in each class. But I was lucky enough to hire a junior high teacher who is an English teacher and a junior high teacher who is a math teacher. I don't think I really did that intentionally, but it really worked in my favor because they were able to specialize and do some rotations. So the teachers actually switched room to room versus having the kids go in all the different rooms. So kids had an hour of reading every day, an hour of math, and then did some writing and STEM. And we really tried to keep our schedules aligned across the school in all grades, really because of that push and support, because we had a resource teacher and we had some other volunteers coming in the afternoon, so forth. So we really tried to hold teachers to keeping with this schedule as much as possible. We did this for 19 days. We had 19 instructional days total of summer school. One other important fact to share is that during lunch, we served roughly 40 to 50 lunches for our free and reduced student daily. So that was good. We were able to provide that for them. So a little bit about the content areas. For reading and writing, we were able to utilize Teachers College Reading and Writing Project, the curriculum that we currently use for reading and writing and phonics in our district. They created a summer school program that really targeted the skills that students would need to be successful in their next grade level. So really honing in on those skills taught during this past school year so that they're ready for their next grade level. In grades 1 through 3, they each had one reading unit and one writing unit, along with all that phonological and phonics work I had talked about. In grades 4 through 8, they had 2 reading units and 1 writing unit. And most teachers decided to do a little bit of a fiction unit for reading and a little bit of a nonfiction reading unit. So students were really exposed to both of those. Again, this was really focused on filling in kind of those gaps and really giving students that extra push so that they are prepared for this school year. Some feedback that I got about reading and writing, as you can look at some of our engaging photos here, is that students really took ownership of their reading time. We saw in grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th, there was series book clubs, which is series books are one of the great, like the most amazing way to get students into reading. And these students in those classes in that unit were so engaged that I would see them at recess reading their series book or before school. They really loved it. Teachers utilized our outside space. You could see writing about reading. They really had their book bins similar to what they do in the classroom during the school year, and we're doing reading. So a lot of great habits and expectations were also practiced that will transfer to our normal school year. Now the comic class, this is really exciting. We had one specific class that really focused on building that phonemic awareness and phonics skills in our upper grade students. We know that often students who get like to 3rd grade and above, sometimes they're missing some of that foundational work around understanding how word parts work or digraphs, splints, all that kind of stuff. So this class was put together to really focus and do targeted instruction to support those upper grade kids in a way that's engaging and fun for them versus like an ABC book, right? So our teacher assessed all students 4th, 5th, and 6th on day 1 to see who would benefit from this class. And we ended up with 8 students that he focused on work with. He pulled them during reading and writing. So they didn't do their classroom reading and writing work. They did this instead. And they really focused on those foundations that are so important. And the assessment was also useful in helping us decide where to start within that curriculum. The students in this class loved it. They had a little celebration at the end, but the comic class just allowed them to kind of take off some of the heavy load of writing a really long piece of like writing piece or reading a really long book and focus on how to word solve within a smaller text with fewer words. It gave them a lot of ownership, and we saw students really thriving. And even in that little picture, you see eager hands up to share out. And that was, again, part of the reasoning around a smaller class size. Our math instruction included 2 different curriculums. We used Do the Math in grades 2 through 6. And this really works on rebuilding students' foundations from the previous year. And it includes lots of hands-on, so many tools and manipulatives for students to engage with. And then they had a little workspace kind of book where they got to do all their work. But more than often, I saw whiteboards out with counters and showing things different ways and crayons and everything. So it was really engaging for them. Students really focused on some of those foundational skills, like I was saying. So in grades 2 and 3, they focused on addition and subtraction. Grades 4, multiplication, 5, division, and 6, fractions. And we utilize what do the math suggested for summer school. They have a little summer school pacing guide that we referred to, and they really pulled out the unit for us. And then we were able to really think about, is this the right fit for our students? In 1st grade, and then in the 7th, 8th math classes, they use context for learning. This has a lot of investigations, games, and it really has to do with, hence the name, real life application, right? And so they were eagerly applying their math things to real life situations, drawing out a part with ratios. So our 1st grade really focused on number sense, that early number sense, and our 7th, 8th worked with fractions adding fractions, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So some heavy stuff for them. But math was probably one of the most successful and engaging parts of the day. Walking around campus during math time and just seeing kids engage in small groups, and then peer conversations and so forth. It was really just an energized portion of our day. Students and teachers really found this something that they liked teaching. And in fact, we now use Do the Math as one of our tier 3 curriculums here in LASD. And it was really great to get some experience with it over the summer, and it was nothing but positive. There's some of that hands-on work and working with tools and different things like that. A big focus, and why I say big, is because our amazing STEM ISTs helped us put together our own curriculum for our summer school STEM program. The main focus was really around design thinking, going through this process and the mindset students should have while going through it. All classes kind of kicked off the first 3 days of summer school with some mini design challenges, like making a paper skyscraper or a mask design, where they thought of problems with our masks, as I'm like heating up under mine, and solutions for those, right? And it was really interesting. We also had a maker space on campus, and teachers had little maker spaces like in their rooms. So students were constantly in that creativity and design thinking. First grade went through a few series of different design. They did a boat design where they needed to use a little piece of tin foil and create something that would float. From that boat, they needed to be able to get it to move, to deliver a marshmallow from one side to the other. And then they spent a lot of time working on a car design. So they started with a roll-a car kit, then built cars from paper, and then a little nerdy derby where we could see our little phonics friend Gus there in the car, where they actually were able to utilize a ramp and see if their car was able to go straight down it. So highly engaging. This mask here on the bottom always gets me because it's full of water. So that might help with the cooling thing like I am right now, but it also leaky. But it was really great just to see them. They had so much fun in those mini design challenges, as well as the bigger one of their little nerdy derby with their cars to move a little stuffed animal. It was very cute. They also had very eager eyes on our upper grade students who were busy making a go-kart. And I want to thank those of you that were able to come by and visit and later on take part in our go-kart race day. Thank you, board members who were able to come, taking time out of your summer to do that. But our 4th through 8th graders were deep in the design process of building go-karts. We had little go-kart kits, and so they had to work through step-by-step directions. We had many backwards wheels, front wheels on the back, and having to rethink that and take it apart. And our upper grades, so 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, really learned how to use some power tools this summer as well. They did their own measuring of their pieces of wood, sawing, drilling, and so forth. So we had a lot of safety conversation around those. My joke was, as long as everyone leaves with 10 digits on their hand, I'm good. And that was a success. So, but it was really fun, and students were just so engaged. It was and again, thank you to Grace Choi and Ricky Hu specifically, who spent so much time building this out, and Grace was there for a couple of weeks to really help with that safety around the power tools. But students really were able to be creative and create some amazing go-karts. I was hoping to share a video with you from our go-kart race day, but we weren't able to do that. So I'll email it to you guys for those of you that weren't there. But go-kart race day was here at Covington. We used the little ramp, and kids had so much fun. They were so proud of their go-karts that they created. I really saw so much perseverance coming through during this in particular, because students were working through problems as a team too, in a small group. They worked together in either a partnership or a group of 4 at the most. And they came up with putting their card together and then decorating it, which some of them really enjoyed. And then one person got to race it down the hill at the end. I think the saddest day was the last day of school. We had to take them apart. But students really enjoyed this, and it was a great way to spend our afternoons kind of engaged in this STEM activity, while also learning so much about the STEM design thinking process, perseverance, like I said, and so forth. So that kind of wraps up our programs, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some like logistical things. So this table here shows you our attendance. Our best attendance day was day 2. We actually had a handful of students who, even with email reminders, missed the first day. We did start on a Tuesday because of the 4th of July holiday. So day 2 is our highest attendance day. And then it kind of trickled down. Week 2 there at the end of week 2, we kind of had our lowest, but we averaged 131 students present each day. And we did have a fair share of absent students. And then we had a handful who did end up dropping throughout. The reason students dropped really varied, given different circumstances. And then the absence, a lot of those higher numbers are due to the fact that we were very strict about protocols around COVID. So if students showed any symptom in relation to COVID, we did send them home and require them to have a test or quarantine for the 10 days in order to return. So a huge thank you again to our district nurses for helping us that. And we were able to stay COVID-free, no positive cases the entire month of summer school. So attendance went, was pretty good. Definitely trickled a little bit as the summer went on, but again, majority of our students did come. So a little bit about communication. I sent out a weekly email using the SMORE platform, which I was very happy to use, especially given the diverse number of different languages we had present, home languages we had present at school, because that allows for such an easy translation. And each newsletter included a message from me, just kind of shouting out students and highlights. And then each teacher gave a little highlight from what happened in their class. So instead of having teachers send out an email to families each day, or each week, sorry, we put it all in one place. So parents who had multiple kids were able to just look at this one newsletter and get some highlights. And then important upcoming dates. We had a spirit day every Friday, ranging from crazy hair day to sports day and tie-dye day. And then important reminders about drop off, pick up, all that sort. So I was able to get an average view of 180 views per newsletter. So that was pretty good. Nice to see that it was being read. And then this summer school progress update was something we asked teachers to do at the end of the program. So the end of the month, where it really called out the skills that were being taught within reading, writing, and math, and then communicated to parents how their students did on those skills. So in most cases, we did a green as an area where a student is doing this skill regularly, or glowed as a reader, or writer, or mathematician, and then yellow as an area that they're still learning, that they can still grow more as a learner. So this was shared with parents at the end of Summer Academy, and in the beginning of this school year, a couple of weeks ago, I shared this with all current classroom teachers who had summer school students, just as another way to communicate with our teachers, past and present of our summer school students. So last little part here, kind of really thinking about the results and the next steps. So I'm going to give you a couple case studies, students, that really I want to highlight some of the work that was done. So our first case study student is a rising second grader at Springer, meaning he's in second grade now. And when I looked back at his FNP levels, he started first grade at a kindergarten reading level, and he kind of just jumped, from a one level at a time, ending first grade at a level that would be appropriate for an end of kindergartner. Okay, he is a SPED student, who we were really able to, again, because of our resource support, really think about those accommodations that needed to be made for him. He's an English only speaker. And really his math scores kind of showed like 3s and 4s from the report card. But he really struggled with addition and subtraction, which helped. Again, if you think back to what math curriculum we used or skills we taught, it was around addition and subtraction. So that's a big gap we see. This student, this year, the beginning of fall 2000 is at level I. So he's at that benchmark of end of 1st grade, beginning of 2nd grade. Beginning of 2nd grade is like a J, so it's slightly below, but he was really able to increase 4 reading levels from his spring FNP to his fall. So we were really able to see that. He mastered a lot of the skills that were taught within reading, which was great to see, because looking at his data from the spring, he still had some work to do with phonics. So it was really great to see him master some of those phonics skills. And then in math, like I had said, he was doing 3s and 4s, and he really was struggling with subtraction and addition. And he did really well mastering a lot of those skills during summer school. So his teacher also said, his summer school teacher also said that he was really eager to learn and talk with others. And I've actually known this student since he was a kindergartner, and he's starting 2nd grade now with so many great things behind him to set him up for success. Part of those obviously from his kindergarten and 1st grade teachers, but also because he was able to engage in a really high engagement, high academic program at Summer Academy. Now I'm going to tell you about another student. So this is a rising 4th grader, so current 4th grader at Santa Rita. When she started 2nd grade in 2019, she was at a level A, which is beginning, the kindergarten level. When she left 3rd grade, she was at a level O. So she made some really great progress during the regular school year. Level O is right about mid-3rd grade, so still a little bit below grade level. This year, she was able to assess and be assessed and was at level P, which is the end of 3rd grade, 4th grade benchmark. So this is a student who was slightly behind at the end of the school year last year, with that little boost from summer, now entered 4th grade at level for her reading. She is an EL student as well, and socially disadvantaged. She was part of our comic book class. So her level really only increased that 1 level, but it was that little boost to get her right on grade level, setting her up for a more successful 4th grade year. And then her teacher feedback was that she was super motivated to work with partners, kind of that theme, right, of our students were really engaged with each other. They kind of missed each other, I think, a bit. So they were really excited to have some time to work in small groups and work with partners. But she really enjoyed that comic book class. And I feel that she was really able to leverage a lot of those foundational skills she was to get her right on grade level for starting 4th grade. So a couple more data points for you. I used some examples of some FNP levels that we were able to get this fall, but for the most part, our levels, when I looked at the increase, really ranged in students, going from like 0 to 8 levels. And so we really felt that FNPs were not as valid as a data point or accurate as we really wanted them to be, given the structure and the content that was used this summer. So again, like I said, it's just we had the average probably showed 1 to 2 levels of growth from spring FNP to fall, but it was really such a broad range that it's really hard to use that data accurately. But our math data, what you see here is I took the skills that were listed in that progress update and really highlighted overall how students did. And so you can see in the majority of grade levels, students were really utilizing and doing those skills taught regularly, with some still needing skills here and there, obviously, because it was a short time, 19 days, right? where they're exposed, highly exposed to these. The little thing, there's a little blip there in 5th grade where students still really kind of struggled with learning those. And you remember the 5th grade was the multiplication work, and students just really, this group of students really struggled with that. And so the teacher utilized the skills from the unit, but she also had to go in and do a lot of foundational work as well. So I think that number really represents the skills from the units that were provided from the curriculum. But again, she had to do a little backwards work there to really work on those foundational multiplication skills. So going forward, I think that continuing with an more academic program for our summer school is the way to go. I think continuing to do the math because of the high engagement we saw, the overall learning of those skills taught. Do the math is a great program in a short period of time as well for students to really do some high engagement math work. We also want to continue with providing students to do some independent reading with their high interest books. So that workshop kind of structure, like I said, is something that we definitely want to continue with in some capacity. And then of course, because it was one of the most popular and exciting things, is a STEM project with some sort of showcase, really engage the students. A suggestion that I have is to return to the LLI as a daily reading intervention program during summer school. LLI really focuses on targeted reading skills that specific small groups of students need. So we're able to see students transfer those skills to their own reading and writing quicker than we were able to see using technically a 20-day curriculum in 19 days. We were kind of crunched for time there a little bit. Speaking of time, I think that considering a 6-week program, if staffing allows for it, is also really beneficial for our students. I'm super excited that we are utilizing DIBELS grades K through 3 because I think that that's going to be an amazing progress monitor and going to help us with qualifications next year when we think about students who would really benefit from additional summer support. And then, of course, because the students love the camp feel, exploring that relationship with the YMCA again would be something useful as well. So I really felt like it was such an honor and a privilege to be part of this summer academy. And like I said, a very interesting summer. And I couldn't have done it without the support from CNI and all the amazing teachers and support staff that were able to make this happen for our most kids who needed it the most. So yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. All right. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this item that if any members of the public want to make public comment, they should start raising their hands. Board members, do any of you have questions on this presentation?
Just one question with regards to the recommendations. I'm trying to remember back, and it seems like part of the concern that we had that led to the YMCA program was not having a lot of kids come to summer school because it was like, well, that's what I'm trying to remember, whether it was because of the duration or whether it was because I feel like I remember a discussion about, like kids are kind of fed up with school. And so I wonder if we had, there were a lot of kids who were eager to get back this summer.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if we would see that next summer, and whether we would have the sort of numbers drop off, which is, I mean, sometimes things just oscillate back and forth, as you try to solve these new problems, but it's just one. I don't know if that's something that you thought of, because I don't know if you were involved back then.
Yeah, no, that's something to definitely consider. And one of the thoughts I had too was more of an academic focused morning with a camp style afternoon. Because of our longer school day, I think we only had one case once school already started of not having someone there to pick up. So needing that kind of longer childcare. But I think that idea of academic morning, so they're kind of half day really engaged with that, and then a YMCA afternoon with camp style things could be something else, or some sort of split like that as well.
Any other clarifying questions before we move on? I see we have 3 requests for public comment. And we'll just get another 10 seconds to see if any other hands go up. Okay, looks like we've got 2 people for. All right, we've got Nancy and Brooke for public comment. Thank you.
Great, Nancy, go ahead.
Hi there, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello,
Hello.
Nancy,
can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? Hello,
we can hear you.
Let's move to,
Okay, let's move on.
should I start?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am asking LASD to rescind their mandatory outdoor masking policy until you can prove without a
Gonna have
shadow of doubt. Hello?
Yeah, we're not, public comment is for this agenda item only. So our second speaker, if you have public comment for this agenda item, please keep your hand up. Otherwise lower it.
right, this is Brooke.
I did not have a student in the summer academy. We actually declined just to give her a break. But I do recognize this is Mrs. Wiley from online virtual kindergarten lessons. Thank you for all of those. But I just wanted to make a quick comment and compliment you on this presentation. The attendance numbers, the open rate on email, the case studies, the improvement scores, so much data, so much amazing data to really exemplify the success of this program. I'm actually regretful that I didn't send my daughter. So thank you so much for the thoughtfulness that went into collecting all of this data and putting it together. And I would fully support an academic program in the morning and a camp style afternoon for future summers. So thank you, Mrs. Wiley.
Thank you, Brooke. All right, board members, would any of you like to provide comment on this agenda item? Who would like to? Vladimir, do you want to lead us off?
Oh, sure. Get my notes here together.
Has to be on this agenda. It has to be on this agenda.
I could just take,
Yeah, why don't we-
So, one thing that struck me about all of this was how kids reacted to doing things as opposed to working with books and stuff like that. And so I would urge us all to consider more doing type stuff in the regular school day. And I think that things worked out really well. The comic class seems to have been a success. Perhaps we can have a stand-up comic class next time.
Different set of
perhaps we
skills.
need that class.
So that this is one thing that sort of like jumped out at me about the whole thing. And I just want to put that out there. I guess that's the only sort of substantive thing I have.
Oh, I just wanted to reiterate what Brooke had to say. Really loved the presentation. And also as it relates to what Brian brought up, bringing, and that you recommended bringing this back is a wonderful idea for the afternoon, maybe even make it longer. I think people don't work till 2, they work till 5.
Yep.
So that was what I had initially thought maybe the 2 to 5 is where it would be, but I could understand that earlier too. It's similar to Pinewood's Festival of Learning. Is the first half of the day is all academics, and then the after lunch is all fun. and it goes till 5. Anyway, it's useful for all people, all that are working. Anyway, that is just my comment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I echo what everyone else has said. It's very impressive what you guys pulled off. Thumbs up. Congratulations. Let's get it together. You've mentioned the idea of bringing in the one-on-one, sort of canceling it back to your idea. You did that in the mixer with the wine, so maybe that's where that goes. They do the wine afternoon, to do that, and still allow the kids to do the full academic. Something to think about as a structure. I guess the thing that we always have harped on is that follow-up. Now that we're back in school, and the 105 that we targeted but didn't show up, what are we doing to support them, and are there any outreaches that we're doing now that they are back in a normal school year? And how we're going to track that and what we do to help them support. And then just beyond what they work with. So maybe mid-year kind of checkup would be next. I know it's real detail. They've always been, I think we tend to, there's a core audience here that we are constantly trying to figure out how to engage with. I think we kind of follow that model. So we keep an eye on them.
Absolutely. We have actually, we're working with, in close collaboration with the principals at all 9 of our schools and have a data wall for every student, and have highlighted students who attended Summer Academy, students who are below the line that didn't attend Summer Academy, and we're right now in the throes of starting to provide those both in classroom interventions and outside of the classroom interventions around reading and math. We're getting started as well. So yes, we absolutely are trying to make sure our minds.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
That's
Cool.
exciting.
That's very
It's,
Yeah, you have that data wall.
it's a little crazy. Yeah.
No, I love it.
I look at it all the time. I know. It's color coded, like it's pretty incredible.
It's fabulous. Brian, do you have any?
No, just say thank you again.
Yeah, I echo what my fellow board members have said. This was an incredible presentation. But Laura, I want to thank you especially for being principal of Summer Academy and leading us this summer. The enthusiasm that you had for this program really came through as you were talking about what you did this summer and just your love for the kids and for the program. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to share.
Awesome.
Well, I'll just share one little tidbit, which I might have told you when we, a couple of you toured campus. You know, we've had for the last several years, fantastic LASD staff who takes on the role of summer school principal, whether that's coordinating with the Y and all of the different pieces. But with this particular program, that was our longest daily program and really our most academic program that I think we've, I mean, ever might be too big of a statement, but for a very long time ever run, Laura really had a true principal experience and has developed a lot of amazing skills and some empathy for being a principal, that you're balancing so many things, and she did an excellent job balancing the health and safety piece with COVID, balancing some of our students who hadn't been on a campus for an entire school year, them and their families back to campus, working with our teachers. You didn't mention, you know, our teachers became STEM experts. They all built their own go-kart. And really, Laura did an incredible job.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the school operations update. And I see that hands are going up already for public comment, so very good. Mr. Baird?
Yes, good evening. Wanted to update you on where we are with our school year and keep our students safe. You've seen this before. This is our tally of COVID cases we've experienced in our schools, both students and staff. through last week or through this past weekend. We are doing a great job of suppressing the numbers through our protocols, so we're very pleased with that. This is a chart from Santa Clara County Public Health Department displaying the seven-day rolling average of cases. You can see we're at 257. It's actually a bit lower than that now. If you saw today's numbers, I think they're at 244. Again, showing the case rate by vaccination status, still demonstrating that those who get fully vaccinated, there's just a much lower case rate with those people. I have alluded to this in my opening comments around pool testing that's coming. And as you know, we are engaged with Concentric, and pool testing did begin this week. As Elena said, it began today. 5 schools, I think, today, 4 schools tomorrow. And we have about 65% participation right now. I anticipate that will increase as this rolls on and word of mouth will start spreading. So we will continue to do outreach with that. We are testing at every grade level. And it's just a reminder that should there be a positive case, response testing that will come along with the pool testing is only available to those who have consented to the pool testing. So anyone who hasn't consented will be on their own to go and acquire a COVID test, either through their own provider, through Walgreens or CVS, those sorts of things. Or we have engaged in a partnership with Mount Los Altos High School District, and we will have response testing available every school day at both high school sites. So on each end of town, we'll have that available for when we need that. So just another option. We have a couple of those set up. Look to bring you some additional information at our next meeting at the beginning of October. We should have some results back from a couple of weeks of testing by then. Also want to talk about mask wearing and outdoors, and a couple of potential modifications. One of the reasons that we have masks in place outdoors at the elementary schools specifically is really around the fact that our students are unvaccinated. And we are so happy to have our kids back in school this year, and we want to keep them in school. So we are leveraging everything we can to keep them in school this year. One of the updated responses to the pandemic this year from the public health departments is that our students, if they are a close contact to a positive, can be put into what's called a modified quarantine. That allows them to stay in school. They have to test immediately. If they test negative, they can stay in school. They have to test again on the 5th day. And again, assuming they're asymptomatic and test negative, they can continue to remain in school. This is true if both students or both people involved in the close contact are wearing masks, right? So if we have 2 students who are identified as a close contact, one isn't wearing a mask, one is wearing a mask, the one not wearing a mask is going to be quarantined at home and not have the option of the modified quarantine. So as we look to keep kids in school, we realize that this masking is important to keep our kids in school. And should a student not wearing a mask be the positive case, then you have an unmasked student with every close contact, even if they're in masks. All of those students will be required to quarantine at home and not have the opportunity of the modified quarantine. So that's for our school program. And another important thing there is the modified quarantine, what it's really doing is just including school in that child's quarantine. So that child can now go to school, even if they're a close contact, if they were wearing a mask, if they were close contact with a positive. But outside of home, school is the only other group they can participate in, right? They can't participate in soccer, they can't participate in after-school art class, whatever it is. Even after-school childcare that we have on other sites. They're not allowed to be in that. They can go to school and to home, right? So that's where the modified quarantine really comes from, that it's not just quarantining at home, it's expanding it slightly to include school in this case. So one of the recommendations I have is for our after-school programs and providers. They have quarantine requirements that are in some cases different than K-12. There, as I said, they're not included in our modified quarantine program, or modified quarantine bubble. And they have their own sets of guidelines from public health to follow. I would recommend putting that on them to follow the applicable public health orders, as opposed to us saying you need to do X, Y, and Z, right? And then I would recommend revisiting this after we have some more data on pool testing. And or also, we know that vaccinations, it sounds like, are going to be becoming available end of October, beginning of November. That might be a time as well to revisit this for our elementary students. For our junior high students, we know the vaccination rate of our junior high kids is about 90%, a little over that actually. The quarantine requirements for those students are different than elementary students or unvaccinated people. If you are vaccinated, as long as you are asymptomatic, you can continue to go to school, go to work, right? You have to test on the 5th day, right? Assuming you're asymptomatic, assuming you're negative from that test, continue going to school. So with regard to our junior highs, after school sports, that we are in a league with 3 other districts. I'm recommending we follow whatever that group has decided. That's what we will continue with. And also looking to allow some flexibility in our PE classes at the junior high school level. And then much like elementary school, after school programs and providers, they have their own sets of guidance, as I said, moving it to putting it on them for coming up with for just following their health orders for their programs. All right. So looking for some guidance from you, but I'll turn it over to you for discussion at this point.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, I see that we have hands up for public comment. So this is the last call for you to put your hands up for public comment. Well, I asked the board, do you have any clarifying questions for staff?
Yeah, I do. One of them was, you said that testing is only available to those who consented to weekly pool testing.
Correct.
What's the rationale behind that?
Because we don't have consent to test them with response testing. We need to have parental consent in order for them to participate in pool test and in response test.
And suppose they give you, supposing they haven't given you the full testing consent, but then sort of like change their minds and say, okay, testing.
So they can get in the next week of pool testing, but they won't be able to jump in the response testing.
There's turnaround time.
Yeah, there's just not enough turnaround time.
All right.
Any other questions? Brian?
Yeah, a couple. One was with respect to the testing that's available at the high schools. Is that just for our students? Does it include our parents if they need to get a test for something going on?
At this point, it's
Their lives.
just response
So
testing.
it's just response testing.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that that's not generally available to our community. It's just
Right.
this response testing.
Yep.
Okay. And then the other question was, as was mentioned earlier, we're a month into school. So I wondered if you had any sense of whether there have been issues with either indoor or outdoor mask wearing among our students. I mean, have there been issues? Or
We haven't,
teaching
there
professionals?
have not been, we talk about this every week at our principals meeting, there have not been issues.
I just have a question. Any clarifying questions?
No clarifying questions.
Jeff, I just had a quick question.
Huh?
The PCR testing at the high schools, is it during school hours only?
No, they have them after school as well.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, thank you. All right,
So you have
item
14 speakers.
14. Gonna make public comment 2 minutes each. Should we call out like all the names right now so that if your name has been called, you can make public comment?
Sure.
Okay. So I see Melissa S., Thaddeus Kozinski, Jeannie Sai, Melissa Sobel, Nancy Coles, Lori Sue, Elena Melgarejo, Kirsten Butte, Alyssa Burgart, Neeraj Mathur, Melissa Brown, Pepe Yu, Shilpa Anand, and Trish Carvelar. Those are the 14.
She had one jump on there, John Bennett.
All right, John Bennett. Fine, but those are the 15. So we can go ahead and start.
All right, Melissa S.
Good evening. As of August 4th, 2021, CDC K-12 guidance states that people do not need to wear masks when participating in outdoor play, recess, and physical education activities. CDPH guidance says, quote, students and staff do not need to wear masks outside. People are much less likely to get COVID when outdoors compared to indoors. The CDPH also says, quote, like other COVID-19 versions, children are still less likely to be infected with the Delta variant, including younger children who cannot yet get vaccinated. If LASD students do not have to wear masks outdoors while running cross country, it's important to treat the elementary school students in the same manner. That is, allow them to run in 85+ degree weather during recess and PE without masks if they so choose. It's important to abide by California Constitution, Article 1, Section 7B. A class of citizens may not be granted privileges or immunities not granted on the same terms to all citizens. Our students have been running around in very hot weather with masks and reporting back that it's hard to breathe and very uncomfortable. COVID is here to stay and we cannot mask our kids forever. Giving our children the choice to unmask outdoors where they can see each other's smiles to improve their declining mental health, see facial expressions to learn social skills, get fresh air to breathe, hear each other, speak clearly as they learn language skills, and not have to sweat behind masks while running around far outweighs the risk of the very low rate of outdoor transmission confirmed by several epidemiologists and the CDC. If people want to unmask their kids outdoors and deal with the consequences of the possibility of a full quarantine versus a modified quarantine during the very low chance of outdoor COVID transmission, then parents should be able to take that risk in order to let their child breathe freely. Please rescind the mandatory outdoor mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right, Thaddeus Kozinski.
Okay, children have a 0% chance of death from COVID-19. Number one. Number two, an abundance of incontrovertible scientific studies have shown that masks cannot prevent the transmission of viruses. Number three, masks have also been shown especially prolonged use, especially outdoors in the sun, in heat and exercise, to have to cause irreparable damage to the lungs, lack of oxygen, and even brain damage, not to mention bacterial pneumonia. Number 3, the PCR test by the inventor himself, Kary Mullis, cannot be used for diagnostic purposes. It has a 95% rate of false positives above 35 cycles of amplification. And number 4, this is not a vaccine you're talking about. It's an experimental mRNA gene therapy, basically a medicine, which was designed for the Wuhan variant and is completely ineffective for any other variant, the Delta or Mu. The vaccine does not prevent transmission or infection, as has been admitted by in public by the CDC. What you're giving us with this insane and disgusting protocol is nothing other than an excuse and legitimacy to keep this facade going. And it is child abuse. There's no other word for this. It is child abuse. The physical, psychological, and emotional disaster you're causing. You have an ability and responsibility not to cause child abuse. Don't hide behind your bureaucracy and fake statistics, and do the right thing, or you'll be judged.
Thank you.
All right, Jeannie Tsai.
Hi, I'm a mom for a 5th grader in Loyola and a freshman at Mountain View High School. I'm talking in support of the outdoor mask mandate. Masks work. They're worn to protect other people from our germs, not necessarily to protect ourselves. I believe that is a common misconception. There have been positive cases here and there within LASD schools, including one here at Loyola. But as far as I know, there has been no community spread among our district. And I really credit that to our indoor and outdoor mask mandates. Most of our TK through 6th graders are not eligible for the vaccine yet. So we really need to continue to protect each other. If you've ever been a yard duty person, you know it's really difficult to monitor kids outdoors. How do we know who's in contact during recess? Our kids, especially the young ones, are not good at social distancing when they're playing. Now, in terms of comfort level, the vast majority of our kids are truly resilient and compliant. I've asked my own kids several times throughout all this, and they said that the masks are not, they're fine. They're not uncomfortable. And I quote, "Don't people know there's a pandemic out there?" Finally, I disagree with those people who think it's abuse. It does not impede from breathing. If you don't believe me, please feel free to go down the road to El Camino Hospital or Stanford and ask the surgeons and nurses who wear them all day long. There are also visually impaired people who wear them, and those who wear masks for religious reasons around the world, they have no problems telling other people's emotions. So I strongly urge you to keep the outdoor mask mandate in place, please. Lastly, just a message to the principals out there. Mr. Julian sent out an email with red bolded text about the pool testing on why it's important, because if you don't do pool testing, your kids will not be able to go to school for 2 to 3 days. So please learn from Mr. Julian. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie.
All right, we have Melissa Sobel.
Sorry, didn't realize I hadn't unmuted myself. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. First of all, I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing to keep our kids safe. We know you're following the science, you're following the research, you're talking to healthcare experts and health policy experts, and we really appreciate your following the science and doing everything that you can to keep our kids safe. I am very in favor of masks indoors and outdoors. We all know that the kids are used to it at this point. If you talk to any of the kids, they're used to masks at this point. They're happy to wear them and they prefer to wear them because it helps them feel safe so that they can then focus on learning and having fun at school. I also want to thank you for rolling out pool testing. My son was so excited that it rolled out today. I'm a little disappointed that it's only about 2/3 who have signed up. I'm surprised. I would have thought that the numbers would be higher. I think you've done a good job of communicating, but I would just ask you to keep sending more emails out. And maybe if there's a way to let people know if they're not signed up, because I know when I signed up, I didn't get like a confirmation, and my husband kept asking me saying, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure you're signed up? So it may be that people think that, one spouse signed their kid up or just thought that they had done it and just weren't sure. So if there's a way to let people know definitively if they're signed up or not signed up, that might help us get the numbers higher for pool testing. And then I was also wondering, I know you'd been looking into testing for teachers, and I wanted to know if there was any update on that. And again, thank you so much for everything that you're doing and following the science to keep our kids safe. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Right, next is Nancy Colas.
Thank you for letting me speak. I am asking LASD to rescind their mandatory outdoor masking policy until you can prove without a shadow of a doubt that the benefit outweighs the risks. You're justifying the policy by saying that masked students will qualify for modified quarantine versus full quarantine. But where is the evidence that masking outdoors provides any benefit? Many physicians and scientists have confirmed that viral particles disperse effectively outside and that transmission outside is extremely low. The CDC also says that outdoor transmission is minimal. Parents should be given the option to take the risk of a full quarantine if it means letting their child breathe fresh air in 90-degree weather at PE and recess. My daughter was forced last week to run a quarter mile with a mask on, and it just about did her in. It gave her a whopping headache. She was sweating profusely and much more out of breath and dehydrated than normal than if she'd been unmasked, and it took her a very long time to recover. So I ask you, what is the benefit here when the risk of transmission outside is very low, but the risk of adverse health effects is high? There is preponderance of medical literature that confirms long-term mask wearing causes hypoxic or lack of oxygen injuries to the brain, heart, and musculoskeletal system. Where are the safety studies that show wearing masks for extended periods without a break does not create illness, especially in children? How can you conclude that it is not harmful for students to run around and exert lots of energy with a mask on during PE? In the absence of data to verify the benefit of outdoor mask wearing, I can only conclude that you are ignoring science and basing your policy on emotional justifications and triggers. Please provide us with valid scientific data or rescind your outdoor mask policy. Thank you.
Right, next is Lori Sue.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? Hello, I'm a parent from Elmont School, and I'm asking to propose that the Los Altos School Board reconsider their outdoor masking policy for children. Asking a child to exercise outside in a mask where breathing is restricted can lead to other adverse safety outcomes such as dizziness, fading, and shortness of breath, and overall discomfort. We should allow this outdoor activity time to be one where children are able to breathe fresh air and recharge their energy for the rest of the school day. This will allow our children to be both safe and promote their overall health and well-being. It's despicable sacrificing children at zero risk to protect adults who choose to have a vaccine or not. Why children have to sacrifice to protect adults who has fear? What's next? Saying this, you will need to have a legal medical form for each parent to sign, a liability contract with each parent for any harm done to a child in this school district. There is no language in my children's enrollment that says I have to mandate a medical device covering over a child's face. I will not take any responsibility for any respiratory issues, responsibility for any facial outbreaks, doors visiting, and learning lags, emotional issues, insubordinate behavior, anxious behavior, and heat. I demand a mask, less education, and an option to attend with or without a mask without discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, next we have Elena Margareo. Hi, Elena.
Should we move on?
This is Amy from Almond School. I still obeying your rules about wearing masks. I played outside today and wearing mask was very uncomfortable. Nobody asked me if I was okay. I am not happy. I want to ask to let my parents choose what is the best for me. Please let me breathe. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, next we have Kirsten Moita.
Hi there, my name is Kirsten Loita and I'm a parent of students at Egan and Covington. I'd really like to thank the district employees and the school board for all you've been doing to continue to educate our students throughout this difficult and unusual time. In this time of the Delta variant and high case rates, that I feel that we should be doing more to ensure that the Delta variant and future variants do not take hold in our community. Part of the reason we've done so well is because what we've been doing. The pool testing should help on this, but I really strongly encourage you to keep the outdoor masking mandate. Children are flexible and adaptable. I've been really impressed at how well they've done using these these really light masks. But you see how kids play together at school, and they can pass COVID to each other, including outside. Perhaps other speakers haven't known people who have died or who have long COVID. I do, and I would not wish this upon anyone. When people say that this transmission is less outside, it's not nothing. So now is not the time for us to have yet another item pulling us back on our fight against the pandemic and making our unvaccinated children more vulnerable. Let's continue to defeat COVID, Delta variant, and protect our kids, teachers, and staff now, and get to our elementary kids to the point that they can be vaccinated in the future, which, as we learned today, is going to be very soon, which is terrific. I do believe that outdoor masking can be reevaluated in the future. I'm not, I would love to see all of our kids not have to wear masks, but the health of our community, our children, our school employees, our families, et cetera, comes above that. To defeat COVID swiftly and effectively, it needs to be done at the community level. And I like to think that I live in a community that values the defeat of a pandemic above masking, including outdoors, for a longer time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Right, Alyssa Bergar.
Hi, this is Dr. Alyssa Burgart. I am a pediatric anesthesiologist at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. I'm also the medical director of pediatric ethics for the hospital and an ethicist at our adult hospital at Stanford. I have 2 children at Almond, both of whom are too young to be vaccinated at this time. I would like us to continue our outdoor mask mandate at this time. We are expecting, there was just an announcement this morning that we expect to have a vaccine available for children ages 5 to 12 available potentially as early as Halloween. So now is really not the time to be taking away supports for our children that are working. And I want my children to be safe, and a big part of why I was willing to send my children to a physical school, which has been absolutely wonderful for them, has been because our district has done such a great job. So I really want to thank you for everything you've done. Additionally, I would just like to point out that there are people who have made public comment today who have spouted significant disinformation, and in particular, Thaddeus Kaczynski, who is not a parent of children in our school district, does not live in our school district. I really hope that we can continue to do a great job taking care of our kids, that we can continue to provide them the support they need. And I'm sorry for children who find it uncomfortable to wear a mask. I can understand running, doing things that are physically demanding in a mask. It can be uncomfortable. And I understand that because I have been wearing a mask since 6:30 this morning when I got to work, and I am still at the hospital. And sometimes my work is physically demanding as well. It sounds to me like children who find it too uncomfortable to exercise in a mask should be perhaps given an excuse from other required physical activities until we can have a safe alternative. I really thank you for your time, and I thank you for all of your efforts to keep our kids safe. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Right, we have Niraj Mathur.
All right, I'm hoping you all can hear me. Board members, I'm here tonight to support the continuation of mask uses for students, teachers, and staff indoors and outdoors at all of LSTS schools. At the start of tonight's meeting, you were reminded of doing the right thing. As a parent of 2 kids in the LASD school district, both in elementary, as a resident of this neighborhood, in my mind, the right thing is to adhere to logic and to follow science. The right thing is to cast aside feelings based in illogical rationale and rhetoric that has led to a significant loss of life in our country already. We have paid a huge cost. Our kids have suffered enough. Our school-age kids, the students in this district, belong in school learning from their teachers and interacting with their friends with masks. To take off masks outdoors is practically saying take off masks altogether. The doctors, the nurses who tend to all who are sick, have continuously said that masks work. Most of them wear masks all day long, sometimes 18 to 20 hours a day to protect others around them. We just heard from one of them on this call tonight. And to that, Dr. Burgart, thank you very much for everything that you and many of your professional coworkers have done for all of us. Taking masks off right now will lead to kids, teachers, and all families in the district and beyond getting impacted adversely. This is not optimal. I want to remind that overwhelming majority of parents, residents with their kids in the LASD school support masks, indoors and outdoors. I urge you not to listen to the outside political pressure and instead do the right thing. Continue the mask policy until we have clear science-based direction that it is safe to remove masks for everyone, kids, teachers, staffs, and residents of this neighborhood. A comment earlier said, you're being judged. He was right. And so far, you've done an incredible job of ensuring we open the schools, keep them open throughout the year, and delivering our kids with education that they so badly have missed and deserve and continue for the rest of this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj.
All right, next we have Melissa Brown.
Okay, I kind of really didn't want to get on here, but I feel like I am in support of the doctors and the people who believe in science. And I want to say thank you for the LASD school district for having outside masks as well as indoor masks. I think it's not too much for us to wait another month or 2 for all of our kids to get vaccinated and for all of our kids to stay safe. So I just hope you listen to the side, my side, that I hope was everybody's side, that we can reduce the spread of this disease, keep our schools open. I would really hate to see another closure and back to remote. So thank you for your work, and please keep the masks on indoors and outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right, next we have Pei Yu.
Hi, I'm Pei Yu, and I have 2 kids at Almond. I'm here to ask you to keep the mask requirement for outdoors and of course indoors as well. As Jeff stated, I also believe our goal at this point should be to keep kids in school as much as possible and as safely as possible, and masks do that. Additionally, the kids are used to wearing masks at this point. My kids, my husband, and I play all kinds of sports, basketball, field hockey, golf, track and field, with masks on, and we're totally fine. My daughter, who's 8 years old, Quinn, is here. She's been wearing masks for most of her elementary school education. Quinn, how are you doing? She's giggling and she's fine. So you'll have to trust me on that one. It's a trivial trade. You're good. Say it louder.
I'm good.
It's a trivial trade-off and inconvenience to prevent COVID transmission. With the vaccine expected to be rolled out for elementary school kids around Halloween, it doesn't make sense to change a policy that's working for little, if not zero, benefit. I believe that most families in this district support kids in school, support safety, and support science. This is why our schools have done so well throughout the pandemic. Please don't listen to outside political pressures trying to stir up their COVID conspiracy theories in our town. If you look up some of the speakers, you will see they at least one person does not live in our town and has a political agenda. Don't listen to the misinformation. Listen to the people in our town, and we have all worked together to keep the schools open. We've all worked together to make the schools safe. Lastly, I do want to commend all of you on an excellent job you're doing on safety protocol. And I want to commend you on providing a world-class education throughout this entire time. I'm so proud of this district. I'm so proud of the families, and I'm really proud of you all for listening to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pepe.
All right, next we have Shilpa Anand.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shilpa Anand. I'm a mother of a elementary school kid who goes to Covington. He's in first grade. I'm also a mother to a baby who's under a 1-year-old. And I'm here to request that we keep the outdoor masking along with the indoor masking. Every day, my son, who actually has asthma, I ask him if he's okay in a mask. He's like, of course. And he wears a very protective mask. It's a Korean mask. And it's even more restrictive. And he's like, Mom, I don't want to be in school without a mask. That's what he says. And when I asked him, what about outdoors? He's like, I wouldn't be able to play with anyone because I can't keep my distance. So please let me keep my mask on, is what he told me today. So I also love that he's able to interact with his brother without us worrying whether he's going to give COVID to his little baby brother. So I do want to make sure that everything that you have done so far has protected our community, has protected our kids. So please continue to follow these protocols, including the pool testing. He was super excited that he swabbed his nose, I think 5 times instead of 4, and he was pretty proud of that today. So our kids, as others said, are far more resilient. We think that masks are uncomfortable. They don't. We pass that on to them to make it feel uncomfortable. But for the most part, everybody I've talked to, parents, principal, teachers, kids are not complaining all day that they're uncomfortable in a mask. Second, I do agree that, where we've been wearing our belt and suspenders, yes, there's data that outdoor mask is lower transmission, but in a time when they can't distant or you don't know if there's more vulnerable kids around you, I think we need to keep the outdoor mask on because we're so close. We're weeks away from getting a vaccine approved. And not too long ago, our kids were in front of computers without a mask. Today, they're with humans with a mask, and I'd rather take the latter any day. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, Shilpa.
All right, next we have Trish Carbalar. Trish?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I got it to unmute. I want to thank the board and LASD for all they've done to keep our kids safe. And I want to say that I am in support of keeping the mask mandate for indoor and outdoor. As a parent of a 5th grader that has asthma, I ask him daily if he's okay with his mask, and he's fine. And I feel it keeps him safe until he can get vaccinated. So I am in support of keeping the mask, and thank you guys for all you've done.
Thanks, Trish.
All right, and our final speaker is John Bennett.
Great. Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me?
Thumbs up.
Great. So this is John Bennett. I'm the current president of Santa Rita PTA. I'm not coming to you in that role this evening, but I'm coming to you as a parent of 2 girls at Santa Rita. I'm really happy that I didn't have to come on here and go all non-conspiracy theory on everyone, and that the resounding support is to keep the masking going. So I'm certainly not going to exploit one of my own children here to make a point as well. Not you, Pepe, that was great, but to the person who had their child read a script, I would, question your motives. I'd really like to thank the precaution of the entire LASD organization, from the school board down to each individual teacher that expresses this and owns it every day when they're teaching our children. I ask my girls, does the mask bother you? How's the masking? They're like, no, it's nothing. It's no big deal. It's second nature to them now. They run around. They look at people that don't have masks. They're like, what are they? Don't they know there's a pandemic? It's kind of entertaining how things have changed. and they don't care. It has become second nature to them. You know, in my role and as an essential volunteer, I've been able to see kids play almost every day at Santa Rita, and I can tell you that the majority of them are so happy to be with other kids that they don't even notice the masks. The masks are become part of their lives, whether we like it or not, and it's something that is and should be required and maintained that way. You know, I want to also second Jeannie's comment about pool testing. As much as we can do to get the message out there and help parents realize that pool testing is a good thing and that it doesn't identify the individual child on the first go around. I really think I'd love to see those numbers up as much as we can. And just looking at the science in the comments, you know, everyone says, go back to the science, show me studies where this is not going to harm my child. If that's the case, then I would also champion that show me studies where this variant and every other variant going forward has zero risk of exposure if we remove the mask mandate. So I think I'm out of time. So thanks very much. I appreciate everything that you do every day from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, John. And that's it for public comment. Board members, would you like to comment on this agenda items? Open it up for discussion. Who would like to start? Oh, thanks.
It's shocked that
You did shock me.
yeah, I appreciate the comments from the community, especially, I'm definitely in favor of us maintaining a mask mandate until we have some indicators, way to indicate how we're doing. I'm glad to hear the pool testing started. I'm hoping, I love the idea of doing a confirmation email out. Maybe it's people saying you are not, would be great. Maybe it'll help drive those numbers up. I thought that was a great idea. Let's see if we can jump on that. But I'm all for, as one of the people said on the call, the belt suspenders approach. I realize that maybe it is low, the transmission might occur outdoors, but low still means it can happen. To me, that's not acceptable yet until we have more measurements and safeties in place to stop that from happening. So I'm hoping that, I know that we'll be hearing on an ongoing basis the testing results. We'll be hearing more moving forward on how things are going within the community. And I think that's what I'm going to be using to evaluate if and when we remove existing mandates in place. But those to me are very important. In your presentation, you brought up a couple of things about after-school programs having their own protocols for doing testing. I would encourage us to have them look at our mandates, what we're doing, because they are dealing with our children. And so I'd like to see if they could at least consider looking at doing outdoor masking as well. I know they're required to do indoor masking, but if we could consider that as well while we're going through this initial step, I'd really appreciate that. I know we probably can't force it, but I'd love to see it encouraged. Yeah. And I think those are my main thoughts here. I think what I'm looking for and what will make me feel more comfortable about reevaluating our current stance is how testing goes, and we can see what's going on with testing, and as the ability to do vaccination and that vaccination rates. Because that'll take a while for that to kick in. Even if it turns on in October, it'll take through most holidays, it'll get through two cycles. So, yeah, what's up? That's my thoughts.
Who would like to share their thoughts? Jessica?
I just want to reiterate that I continue to support the mask mandate inside and out. While I appreciate all of our speakers and all the emails we've received, wanting to have more agency in how their children wear masks outside, and that it should be a risk that they take. What I don't like that they're not considering that the risk they take could affect other children. And that's who we are trustees for. We are trustees for all of our students, every last student. And I want to make sure that we're keeping those students safe. So I just wanted to really hit that one, that piece home. And I support as it relates to the after-school programs going with their protocols, but agree with Steve, make sure they at least know ours. And for any parents that may be concerned, you tell them what ours are and what you would like to see. And I'm sure they'd want to have people going to their after-school programs. So definitely make sure your voice is heard there. And I do, I'm okay with revisiting this when they're vaccinated. I think pool testing will tell us everything we heard last year, which is all of our pool testing, we didn't get in pool testing, knock on wood. We've had no positive cases for pool testing as of last year, and hopefully that will be the case this year. But vaccination is really going to be the key. That's it for now. Thank you.
Brian, did you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, so I certainly don't have a problem with any of the recommendations that were presented. I think I do want to be sensitive that, you know, kids are different. There are kids, I think, who struggle. I think some of the districts, looking online, some of the districts that have outdoor mask mandates, as we do, are more explicit about if the child is more than 6 feet away from anybody else, then they can take their mask off for a little while. I would be supportive of allowing that kind of flexibility. I would even be willing to allow some judgment for PE. I mean, if they're doing something that's particularly strenuous and the PE teacher is there and can ensure that everybody stays more than 6 feet apart, whether it's running sprints as we do in Junior Olympics prep and that kind of thing, I would actually be even comfortable with that under controlled circumstances. Beyond that, I think, as we've said, we're trying to keep everybody in school. And I think, you know, most of what we're dealing with is coming down from CDPH. As Jeff talked about in the beginning, we get to keep kids in school. Yep, everybody's wearing a mask when they're close contacts, right? And so when they're, you know, out on the playground, chatting up the storm, you know, playing, I'm gonna date myself, I'm not gonna say what, you know, and close, then I think having everybody with a mask on enables us to keep everybody in school. But I think we should have a little bit, I think it would be good to have a little bit of flexibility for the kids who really just need lunch, all of lunch off by themselves with their mask off, if that's what they do.
We have a bit of that already, the break time concept.
Yeah, we certainly respond to the kids when they need to take a break or step out of the classroom and take their mask off, that sort of thing. Yes.
Thanks, Brian. Vladimir?
Everything's been said that I have brought to say. For me at least, the most important thing, your choice to wear a mask or not to wear a mask affects other students. And I'm perfectly willing to let you do your own thing if it doesn't affect anybody else. And the problem is that even though the transmission rate for kids is low, even though the transmission rate for outdoors is low, if you do get COVID, it is very serious. And there are pictures of kids 2 years old in the hospital with COVID. It's they're probably not going to survive. So the effect that you have on other people, which was never mentioned by any of the people who are against the outdoor masks, for me is the most important. Support keeping masks outdoors.
Thank you, Vladimir. So I just have a few points that I wanted to make. First, I want to thank everyone who took the time to write us your emails and talk during public comment tonight. Please be assured that we do read all of your emails. You know, there's a couple of points that were made by some of the speakers that I felt like there's something they're not getting. And I'll just be very blunt and say that we have two very different populations. We have our junior high population that's got a 90% vaccination rate, as we had up there. And we have an elementary school population, which is a very large unvaxxed population. And you can't treat the two of them the same way. You know, I think that you can't conflict them. And so when you look at, you know, have been following the science. We have been following it consistently. And if you look at what the protocols we've had in place, I think it was Pepe who said, don't change a policy if that's working. We haven't had any school-wide outbreaks. And I think that's really, really important. I'm following the news closely. I see, across the country, there are schools that have closed down after being opened. I don't want to see that happen to our kids. People are also saying that our rationale for the mask mandate is because we want the kids to have a modified quarantine versus a traditional quarantine. And again, I think that's only one small piece of it. I think they're kind of missing the larger point that, as Vladimir said, as everybody up here knows, masks protect other people from you. We have to think of this as a community where we are responsible for each other. And I'd like to, I don't know how else to say it, but I'd really like to see our schools stay open. Our kids are thriving. They're happy. I mean, I saw the photos of happy kids in the summer academy, right? And I'm like, I'm so thrilled that we were able to do that. And I do appreciate the comments from parents who have actually done yard duty and volunteered on campus, and they see the reality of some of our younger students. And so I think that I'm still very much in favor of keeping the mask mandate in place. I do agree with Ryan about being flexible. Alyssa Burkhart made a good point about maybe we can excuse kids who don't want to wear masks during PE. But I think that's a much better thing than just saying nobody has to wear a mask. I think that's, I don't think that's a good idea. And this is an evolving conversation. Things are changing all the time. And so I feel like this is where I stand. And from what I had gathered from the board, Jeff, you're looking for a direction. You got it?
I think I have it. Yep.
Okay, very good. Any other?
I just make one other
Yeah,
comment
Brian.
for general information. I was looking at the CDPH guidelines, and they've indicated on their website that they are going to revisit, I think, the school guidelines as well as others no later than November 1st, which may. So I just wanted to put that date out there also, in the sense of what we're doing is working. Changes may be coming in the future. So it doesn't make sense for us to make major changes.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay, I'm gonna move us along to our next agenda item, independent study update. Mrs. McGonigal will present an update on the LASD independent study program, including process, participation, and challenges. Mrs. McGonigal.
Right, so I'm happy to be here this evening to talk to you a little bit about independent study. We talked about it before school started, kind of what the requirements were around AB 130, and now we are up and running, and I thought it was time for an update. So next slide, please, Marcy. Do you want me to flip?
Oh, I don't want this.
Come on, come on. All right, here we go. So just as a little reminder, this year we are operating under AB 130. And both the CDE, or all the CDE, the CDPH, and AB 130 itself really want schools to prioritize in-person learning. And that's really been the frame with which we're moving forward. But do recognize that we are required to offer an independent study option for students who have a medical need around not being able to return to in-person learning. And we've had lots of conversations with families about how different it is than our virtual school that we were able to successfully run last year. So we're working from that premise that we want all kids to be safe on campus. If they can't be, we do have an option for them. That follows the intent of AB 130. So we put our process in place. Erin Green and I are really running point on independent study. And so Erin meets with all of the families. We like to have the child as well to make sure that it's really clear what the expectations are. There is a formal agreement requirement as part of the AB 130 that everybody has to understand the participation requirements, the attendance requirements, the progress requirements, the work requirements, all of those different pieces. And once we're in agreement, I go ahead and enroll them into Stride K-12, which is our selected platform and system. And that time frame usually has been taking about 2 days. There was a big learning curve on my end, on their end, I think, with the volume of people using their service for a similar need, but we have it pretty streamlined now. Right now, through the efforts of Aaron Green, we have just 21 students enrolled in our independent study option. And you know, as I was preparing for this presentation, I was curious myself to see how many of these students were enrolled in our virtual school last year, just as a point of interest. And as I was looking, I actually learned that more than half of them are completely new to our district. So 2 of those include kinders who have no older siblings, so they're new to our district, and others who have either moved in or transferred from another school. So they never really experienced our in-person learning from last year. So I just thought that was an interesting tidbit. The students who are not new to LASD students, the majority of them were in virtual school last year. So a little bit about where those 21 students, looking both at schools, it's just always interesting to see where they fall out. No students from LAF or Loyola, but you can see we're serving just about every grade level except for 7th grade. So it really is a community-wide service that we're providing this year through independent study. I am actually considered the teacher of record, so I enroll them in all of their courses. Part of that master agreement and meeting with Aaron Green, we make sure that we know for older students what math level they need to be in. They have an elective choice. So there's a little bit of that in there. So they're formally enrolled in their course load. I also take daily attendance, although the secretaries would tell you that I'm not very great at taking daily attendance. And right now I'm like, oh, I didn't take my attendance today. But yes. And so I take daily attendance. We also have hired a fabulous classified employee who is meeting with our students. So that requirement, you may remember, our K-3 students get daily live instruction through their Stride teacher, which is terrific. And students in 4th through 8th grade have to have a live daily interaction, different than instruction, but a live daily interaction. So we have a fabulous gal named Lillian who has a regular daily meeting with each of the kids, and she has kind of an attendance log for me. That's how I take my attendance, as she's the one checking in. So it's great, and she really connects with the kids and makes sure things are working. Sometimes she'll give me some red flags about something wonky in the system, but it's really nice that it's working out. And then part of my bigger job that I'm looking at is really monitoring progress to make sure that students are logging onto the system daily. They have lots of nice reports that I can see all 21 students kind of at a snapshot, and then I can drill into any particular student. For instance, today, there was an IEP. 2 of our 21 students have IEPs in special education, and there was an IEP meeting happening this afternoon. So I was able to go in, get a snapshot of this student's progress to see that he was making great progress in all of his courses and share that with his IEP team. The way the back-end system works and the way that's required through AB 130 is it's very interesting. Actually, I think I have it in the next slide. So when you look at this example of, this is one of the views that I look at on my end, is the weekly plan for students. I'm going to get up over here. You can see a couple different things. So a check mark means that that student did that whole math lesson, and at the end of that lesson took the mastery check to say, like, yes, I learned what I was supposed to learn. When you see just the half moon I don't know what you would call it, half a circle. That really means that the student went in and did the lesson, but they couldn't master the check at the end of the lesson. And the way AB 130 works, it doesn't matter, and I've told a couple of kids this, doesn't matter if you spend 2 hours on your science lesson, what they want to know is that you've mastered it. It's about the mastery piece. So we're talking, making sure that kids have strategies to go back to their classroom teacher in stride and ask any questions they might need. The teachers, you can see up at the top, there are those required times. So oftentimes if a student hasn't mastered things, a couple different things, you'll see an additional required time in there. And that's when teachers really online get to check in with the student to make sure that they continue to make progress. When the circle is blank, I know that they didn't even do the lesson. So on a weekly or twice every other week basis, I'm doing a snapshot and communicating out to parents like, oh, I see that your child has missed some of these pieces. You'll remember part of AB 130 is that the parent really is that learning coach. And so I want to make sure that parents are monitoring their child's work and that the student is making that progress. So we're all learning. There are a few little glitches in the system, but it's moving along. Just an example of 8th grade. You can see this particular student has several live meetings each day, well, except for Tuesday. And the upper grade students don't have those little circles. I have a different way where I check their progress. What else? So the one day that our fabulous Lillian was unable to do her job of checking in with the older students, I took that on and sent all of the kids an email telling them that Lillian was going to be out, and I asked them, tell me how independent study is going, and just by responding to this email, this will be your daily live interaction, which is an allowable interaction. So I thought it would be fun to share just a couple of quotes. This is from one of our 4th grade students who's enjoying, but my favorite one is our 8th grade student here. Very 8th grade, right? I love it. A looming sense of pressure or dread. So independent study is certainly working for the small handful of students who really need a different situation for this year. And several of our 21 students are waiting until they're vaccinated before they return fully in person. And then this was a parent. And you'll remember that about what I thought was one 50-pound box, but now it seems like a series of boxes are delivered home once they're enrolled in their different courses. So there are certainly some challenges. Both Erin Green and I are spending quite a bit of time getting this program up and running, and then the monitoring of the program is intensive. I think once we get more on the roll, it will hopefully lessen, but there is quite a bit of time. And you know, it's a new system. You never know what you don't know until something happens. So the parents have been really great and let us know when something's not working on their end. And our stride person has been really great in doing some troubleshooting with us. I think one of our students spent about 2 weeks before we realized he wasn't enrolled in an English class. He had all of his other classes. And then I think the parent finally said, I feel like he's missing a course. But so there are just little things, but he's all caught up in making gains. And then finally, you know, we do want students in person as much as possible. And so Erin Green has been, once we figured out how many of our students really were new to LASD, she's been reaching out to families and inviting them onto our campus for a tour to see kind of what learning looks like in a really safe environment. So this is one of our new strategies. as part of the, I don't know if it's monthly, the reporting I have to do to the state about our independent study option. One of the pieces that they periodically ask is, what are you doing to get kids in person? So this round, I will report that we're really inviting families to come in to see what that experience looks like. Okay, that is it on our end. Any questions?
I'll just try to make it again. Sandra and Aaron have done incredible work about getting this off the ground up and running. We're thankful we have a small number,
Yes, we are.
right? And I think it's also, I think that small number is also really testament to the work that our teachers and our school site personnel and our district personnel are doing to demonstrate that we can do this safely, and that we did over the course of the last almost 1 year now, coming up next week, having kids back on campus. But they have done a lot of heavy lifting with this one. Everyone's pulling a whole lot more. This is a big one. Just as long as I'm saying this, and just recognizing that there's a few things, right? All of these requirements that come with checking vaccination or testing twice weekly or volunteers vaccinated on campus, the back end to make sure all of those records are accounted for is set up for, but we're doing it, and everyone's doing a lot more. It's in their job description right now. Sandra, everyone's certainly achieving.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. If anyone wants to make public comment, you can start raising your hands now. Board members, do you have any clarifying questions before we go to public comment? I just have one, just out of curiosity, because of the kid who hadn't done their lesson plan. Are the hours of the independent school day the same as the hours of the regular? So a kid can't do their homework, that one lesson, for example, in the middle of the night or something?
They could. So it's really wide open to when the student, hopefully with some family guidance, gets those pieces done. So that plan that you see over the course of a week is open to students. They can even move forward in their plan. So I have one gal who I had to reach out to her parents. She was at like 200% in PE and at about 2% in her English class. And I was like, okay, I know everybody wants to get out there and get moving, but you also need to get your reading work done. So yes, there is a lot of flexibility.
It's truly independent.
It is really independent. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, let's see if we have any takers for public comment. I don't see any. We're going to close public comment. Board members, would any of you like to provide comment on this agenda item?
Well, I'm so glad that you're back to teaching again. I'm glad that we have only a handful of students, because despite all the effort that's been put into it, my sense is there's a lot of effort that's been put into it. My sense is that this is not the right way to do it. And I don't have, personally, I don't have very high hopes for the learning that's actually going to take place. There seems to be too many things. For instance, one of the things is if you're in the third grade, for instance, or any of them, actually, if you're learning on your own and you stumble across something you don't know, ask your parent. We all know parents what they've done these days. So my kids are doing stuff that I did in college. So if at that point they're sort of stuck from moving forward, and that I expect that to happen a lot. Also, the testing from a pedagogical point of view is really important in terms of learning. That's pre-testing, doing that stuff, and post-testing. So I'm glad that we have only a very small handful of students that I hope that they all consider moving to. But thank you for your work. And Aaron, if you're listening, Aaron, thank you.
Any other? Yes.
I just want to reiterate thanks to Sandra and Erin. Also, want to emphasize that Erin, get as much of these meetings done as possible. I really do think that, especially these 12 families that have not been on campus, see how we're getting this done. And if she needs, connect her with local parents, with parents, with the local parents, to get their input too. You know, they're new to the area, so they may not know people. Getting to know the people and seeing it in action of people. Thank you so much for your efforts for this less than ideal situation.
Ryan, I don't have any other comments. Thank you so much for doing this. Jessica said it's less than ideal situation, but I think we're making the best of it. So thank you. Okay, I'm gonna move us along now. Our next agenda item is a public hearing on textbook certification. A public hearing will be held on the availability of textbooks and instructional materials for each student in the district. This is McGonagall.
Excellent. So this goes along with, so item 4 and item 5 really go together. So each year we're required to let the board know that we have sufficient textbook materials, and part of that process is having a public hearing where the public can share whether or not they believe or if we have issues around access to textbooks and support materials.
Great. And I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Are there any requests for public input? I just wanted to tap the gavel. Give it 10 seconds. Raise your hands on Zoom. I don't see any hands. So the public hearing is now closed. Would any board members like to provide comment on this agenda item? No. Steve. Okay. Ryan, Jessica. Neither do I.
Excellent.
Thank you. And next we have resolution 21/22-05. Sufficiency of instructional materials. The Board of Trustees will consider approving a resolution ensuring that each student in the district is provided with sufficient textbooks and instructional materials.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Present to you the resolution and hope you will approve.
Are there any questions from the board? Are there any requests for public comment on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, public comment is now closed. Any further comment on this before we go for a vote? Okay, then may I please have a motion to approve resolution number 21/22-05, sufficiency of instructional materials as presented.
I so move.
Thank you, Jessica. May I have a second? Thank you, Steve. Okay. Motion to approve resolution number 21/22-05, sufficiency of instructional materials as presented was made by Jessica and seconded by Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we're moving along to board meeting protocols. Jeff, I'm just gonna let you.
Yep.
Take this.
So this item is for your discussion and direction. Sandra, can you go to the next slide?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thanks. I think you remember there's only 3 slides, just you're fine. There is an expiring executive order coming up, expiring on September 30th, taking effect on October 1st. And as you recall, that was an order that allowed school boards to function online and freed up some of the Brown Act requirements associated with those meetings. So this is our last scheduled meeting, regular board meeting in September. Our next meeting on October 4th will be across that threshold where virtual meetings wouldn't be allowed. There was a very recently signed piece of legislation, right, on Friday, AB 361, and I have shared an overview of it from one of our law firms that does allow meetings to continue online. There's some language in here that it may only be utilized where there is a gubernatorial declared state of emergency. And in order to do that, it will have to be determined by a majority vote. That meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees. So kind of the big picture going forward is we need to decide, you need to decide what board meetings will look like, beginning with our fourth meeting. Just some early districts out of the gate. Not everybody is, most districts are where we are right now in this process. An exception is our partner high school district, MBLA. They are resuming in-person board meetings without an online option for public comments. Actually, attendance, they can attend virtually, but they can't comment virtually. They're using YouTube for that going forward. Of course, emailing the board remains an option. They point out in communicating with the board. So a few kind of guiding thoughts. This idea of a hybrid approach, you know, doing both in person and online, close to what we have now, but not quite, right? You all know we don't have people in attendance here. We'll have to, if we did this, we would have to figure out how to do this. It is a very complicated endeavor, and we don't even have people in person commenting yet. Things to consider though with implementation of that, and this would be an implementation of in person too, actually, is COVID-19 protocols that would need to be in place for people to attend, vaccination, testing, how many, do we want to put a size limit on this? In that situation, how would we manage the technology? Already we couldn't do a piece of the presentation tonight, which was the video, just because we couldn't make it happen in both places simultaneously. So how would we manage that? I think we would have to have another person. I don't think Marcy, she's done fantastic thus far, but I don't think managing another piece would be possible, so we would have to bring in some additional staffing. It does provide an option for those who are not comfortable attending in person. That is true. And just want to draw a distinction. There could still be our friend here, the owl, as a way to view the meeting, right? And then a decision of whether or not there's public input virtually, right? Could be a part of that, right? So those two aren't necessarily together. And it does allow for those who have just difficulty attending for whatever reason. And then in-person board meetings. As I said earlier, what are the protocols that are going to be in place for an in-person meeting? I'm confident we continue to provide archived videos for those who weren't able to watch it live. We can do a live and archive as we do now. Would we allow emailing for public comment? Could do emailing kind of in advance, and we can, as you do now. I know there are some districts who are doing emailing in the moment as a way to take input. Have to figure out how to manage that, of course. And then there are agencies that take the email so that the public recognizes that they've been heard and acknowledged, and include those as a part of the as a part of as a part of the packet. Emails we got in the last day and a half. Part of the public packet. But those are some items for consideration, just to kind of get that conversation primed as we talk about where we want to go from here. So Shelley, I'll turn it back to you.
Before I ask the board for clarifying questions, I'd just like to say, if any members of the public want to make public comment, please start raising your hands now. Board members, do any of you have clarifying questions? Right?
Yeah, when you say here what COVID protocols would be in place, is that really up to us? Or, I mean, my assumption would be that on the one hand, we have to abide by county health orders,
Has been
rights, as been rights. Well, but on the other side, the Brown Act requirements for public access lead me to question whether we could really do it. Like, I would be surprised if we could require vaccination to attend our meetings. I don't know if you have an answer. I mean,
I don't have an answer.
Okay, but that's my question. That's
Yep.
concern there.
Address it for discussion. No other comments from board members, no questions. I mean. Let's go to public comment. I see we only have one taker, Jeannie side. Jeannie, you can have 3 minutes.
Hi, it's me again. I do not agree with MVLA's decision to not allow for virtual speakers. I'll tell you, it's been so nice to have access, easy access for me throughout this pandemic, as well as for my friends. 7 of us, at least 7 of that I know of, were watching you all tonight, texting throughout, and it's just nice to be able to participate. We were able to prepare our dinners leisurely. You know, I was able to meet my family, and I plopped down from the computer, give my comment, and I continued to participate while going about my other business. I understand that there are COVID protocols and, you know, about the legality and all this, but I would just say that in addition to keeping us safe from germs, it also saves the planet from gas emissions. So please consider continuing to make remote commenting available. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeannie. That's it for public comment. Board members who would like to stop this discussion?
She's shy about asking me.
No, I'm trying not to make eye contact.
I do have some comments.
Go ahead, Blanchard.
I think that some version of what we're doing right now would work very well. I don't think that we're at the state where we can actually ask members of the public to come in to the boardroom. Once we decide to take our masks off outdoors, then we can consider it. I think that will be the appropriate time for us to consider switching to allowing people to come into the room. In general, I'm in favor of as much participation as possible. So I think that continuing to allow members of the public to comment the way they have been doing for the last year or so is great. I think that's the way to do it. And I would also suggest that we adopt, maybe not putting the emails into the packet, but at least making them available on the website. Because that is public comment. And making sure that everybody has an understanding of what other people look like. It's worthwhile letting everybody know what's going on. And I think also if we answer, then those answers should also be as part of the public record. If you don't think so, then don't answer.
Can I ask Jeff to clarify
Sure.
on that? Because if someone sends us public comment by email, if they made the public comment in person, we can't respond to them. So should we be able to, so by that logic, we should be able to respond to them by email, right?
I would,
I don't know the
okay,
answer to that. We have to find it out.
then I would defer to whatever Jeff says. Right now, we do respond individually to
Exactly.
individuals,
Right.
not to the public. So maybe our answers. I'll defer to.
So that's, I would say in that case, that's technically communication with the board as opposed to agenda item comment.
So what does?
That's why there's a response.
And should the response be, should the emails and the response be made publicly available?
I don't know. Let's find that out.
All right, but my feeling is that they should. But I'm not. This is not a. I'm not willing to stand. And I think that we should continue a live feed and make the record available as we have in the past.
So I agree, certainly agree that we should continue with live feed. I think that's occurred, it's been very helpful. I do have some concerns about online comment and potential to get out of hand in the future, but I agree with Vladimir that, while we're still doing outdoor mask mandates and all the other things, it's, I think, unfair to with respect to our MBLA colleagues. It doesn't seem right to require that people come into this room to address us during our meetings at this time, at least. So I would like to see us keep remote comments, at least. It's also said, I don't know what the right thing is. Maybe it's when masks no longer required doors. Maybe it's something else. We'll have to revisit it. But I think we should keep remote comments until then. One suggestion. I mean, I do think it would be helpful for people to have a way to submit email comments that they can then see are part of the record. I think I feel like I've seen some cities and school districts where they have a separate email address that they sort of say, if you want to make a public comment on the record, send it to, I don't know, public comment at LASDschools.org or something, rather than just everything that gets sent to the trustees alias falls into this bucket. I think it would be helpful to just have a way for people to be intentional about that, because not everybody wants to see their email. People shouldn't feel like they can't email us without that ending up on the web, because not everybody wants that to be fully public. So just like to see that mechanism if we go down that road. And I'm very against reading people's
Very against what?
Some school boards have gone so far as to
public
read
comments,
the email comments that they get, and I am
Publicly.
dead set against that during the meeting.
Well, so since you both have mentioned, I just want to throw out one thing that I'm really concerned about, which we saw an example of tonight, is people who don't live in our community making public comment. I think, I don't want to be conspiracy theorist, but it's like, it's part of a larger conversation beyond LAS, and I just don't think that's right. I spoke to the MBLA superintendent, and I asked her if that, that they had an issue with that also. People who are not from this community making comments. It's very disruptive and disrespectful, and I don't know. I think that is a genuine concern of mine, and I think if you're going to say something ugly, let's just say, then stand here in front of me and say it to my face. It's very easy to say ugly, hurtful things when we can't see your face and it's coming through, the Zoom feed or whatever it is. So that just my 2 cents. That's just kind of what I'm worried about. Just anybody, just okay. Just jump in.
I'm for keeping to what we're doing now. That's doable. I wasn't 100% sure that is doable from what I read. So that's what I want to know first. It sounds like we have to go back.
Well, unless we take formal action by majority vote, that meeting in person will present imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees. Right, so
Yeah.
we have to do that, and if we want to stay in this format, my understanding, again, I have to check with Lee on this, right? My understanding is that we have to reestablish that every 30 days. Right, we have to revisit that, take formal action to declare that every 30 days in order to stay in this format.
I'm just, sorry, I'm going to be thinking out loud right here. I do not believe that I could agree that we would be in imminent danger if we had COVID protocols in place. If we had us in masks, at least just the minimum of what the CDPH requires of meetings of a certain amount. If we kept a certain amount of people allowed in the room, but I'm one person. Because I know we can get it done, not easily, but we can get it done. So there's that. But I like the idea of keeping this way because I really, when I was a parent and I was giving feedback as a parent and not a board member, I had to find childcare or I just didn't get to go and I just watched and I didn't know if my voice was heard in my emails. So it was, I really sympathize with a lot of the families that would like to participate but can't. And I never brought my kids because my kids had a chance of being super early. Didn't know what day it was. So I really like the idea of some sort of participation. I like the idea, you don't like it, but I like the idea of even an email read for like 2-3 minutes, whatever our time is, whatever our limit is, word limit or whatever, it's read. As long as it's sent to the comment, email address that you've usually done. So I like that idea. So it's kind of both, and you have to set it up to a certain time or whatever that the email must be received for that comment or all things. Anyway,
So
I
can
know
I just
I'm all over the
clarify, you want to
place.
have in-person, email, and virtual?
No, I'm just telling you all my thoughts.
Oh,
I'm
she's just
thinking out
I'm
loud.
thinking out loud.
Okay, okay.
I'm thinking out loud because kind of more information. I don't like doing this. I like to be a little more prepared, but I got more information right here. So I don't actually want to make it much harder. So if we are in person, we stay in person, but I think we allow emails to be read out loud. And we don't necessarily have the Zoom feedback before we do the email thing. If that is what we do, if we go in person, allow people in here, we allow people from home to participate in that way.
Can I just ask just a clarifying question?
Yeah.
then? The board packets that we get, are they available to the public?
Yeah.
That's how
So,
we get it.
okay, no, well, I thought I was special anyway.
No, but I think that kind of reading your mind is there's board communication that you may have received during the course of the week since the last board meeting, week plus. But until the public sees the board packet released, they don't know that they're going to be commenting on it, right? So it couldn't be included in the board packet.
Right, but let's say it's after the board. Well, I guess it doesn't make sense, but I was just thinking instead of reading the public comment emails, could they be included in the board packet? Then we wouldn't have to read them because everybody would have them.
There's a way that I
As
remember
part of the minutes, right?
Oh, yeah, this
the city did something similar to what she's saying. The city has done something when they were doing the First Street Green Project,
Oh, yeah.
office project. I remember going there as a constituent, talking, and I saw they kept on updating the agenda to have all of the emails that were coming. So that's a way. And it wouldn't be like every hour, it'd be like once a day there was a dump.
So I kept quiet because I was equally conflicted as Jessica was about what is allowed and what's not allowed.
Yeah.
I think I've less conflicted on some of the other ideas like that, but what I love about what we've been doing is access and the level of participation we have. It sounds, and I agree with you. I kind of read this saying that can't move forward, even with the vote. We still have to have a live component. Maybe I misread that somewhere, which kind of forces us into a hybrid. If I'm wrong, happy to be told I'm wrong. So that the immediate sort of next step for me was then what? Not excited about the idea of reading emails. I'm fine with it being close to the record, going to separate email address, so it makes sense. We're going to go to comments. Live, the idea of a hybrid live and online comment makes me back to how to, we didn't do that with teaching. Hard pressed to understand how to manage it. For always we didn't want to lose control of the conversation. So we could do that pretty quickly. Or so we're talking to people here, we're talking to them, right? Or we're only talking to people here, and we're using people that are watching. And so I'm a little worried about that one, how we manage that. That's a comment more than I'd like to understand how we manage that better before I jump in and say I want to do it this way. I also, given that this comes so late in the cycle, I'd like to say that because it came so late in the cycle, we're going to do the same thing we've done historically, because it said that 30 days after doing it. So that
What's up?
so this came so late in the cycle, and people are used to a year plus of us doing meetings this way, that until we've got a better understanding of how we want to manage it, that we maintain at least what we're doing today for October. We need to have this conversation on how we adjust, so we can communicate what we're adjusting to better, so people can engage us in whatever our new engagement strategy will be. So that would be my only thought in terms of immediate next step, is that we roll it and then continue this conversation on how we adjust. And a hybrid snake. So I'm fine with the idea of emails coming in that go to a specific comment we posted. Want to make sure those are limited to a certain characters, words, whatever, so they can't scramble on for 85 pages. But as long as we put some protocols around that, that makes sense.
To do what with them, Steve?
To be posted as two part of the, like the city of I would prefer to your comment, Shelley, that they be said live versus just posted. Back to the idea of random comments can come in from. I'd much rather have those people at least have to show up and dialogue. They give me those comments, then get that I get the reason why we do it. And then I just need to think about how I want to deal with the split audience. Because I've been on nothing but split audience conference calls for a long time, pre-pandemic. They really don't work well. So I'd like to see what you make that work well.
I'm also not comfortable with this hybrid where people make comments on like in Zoom and there's people in front of us. I mean, even tonight I was trying out something different, like asking people to start raising their hands early before I call for public comment. It's just, I think it's a lot to manage. And I think I'd also like to just remind everyone, and I know I don't need to remind you, but this is a meeting of our board that the public is allowed to witness. This is not a public meeting. You know, it's a, and as such, I think that, you know, if you, Jessica, I was a parent too. Okay. And when I got more and more really involved in what was happening in the school district, yes, I also had to find, all of our parents do, right? Have to find someone to like watch my daughter, you know, but somehow or other we did it. We did it. All of us up here did it somehow or other. You know, I'm just really, really put off by people who are outside of this community who are trying to drag us into perhaps a national conversation or something, or debate, and they wouldn't have the ability to do. They're abusing the ability to participate. Right? I mean, I love that we've had more participation because we've been doing it this way, and we haven't had a problem. But now people are starting to abuse that, and they wouldn't be able to do that if they had to stand up in front of us and say that.
I somewhat disagree with you on that, because
Yeah,
we
go
had
ahead.
many people get up in huge rooms, say awful things to our faces. So
But I was comfortable with that.
It was
'cause they-
relevant.
'cause, hey, I knew, we knew who they were.
yes,
They were our
We knew they
families.
were from here.
yes,
Yeah.
So I'm fine being screwed up.
Yeah.
I'm with Shelley, that the idea that I'd like to be good to my face, rather than, because email forms, we actually asked the Los Altos County prior to adjust its comedy.
Yeah.
Because they still let you do it anonymously. We've asked them to adjust that protocol, because it got so out of hand.
yeah.
So I'm still of the opinion that if you have something you want to say that badly, you ought to be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And showing up and saying it to my face is even better. So if we're gonna go to this, open it up, I'd be more comfortable with the idea that we open it up into Brian's idea of send your comments here
Yes.
if you can't attend in person.
Yeah.
Versus having it like open and live people.
Yeah, I didn't say I wanted the mic open necessarily, it was more the email thing, but possibly we read it so it is heard. I don't necessarily, I'm not even married to the reading part. And I want to go back to Shelley's comment about we had to deal with it. For the very reason we had to deal with it, I don't want them to have to deal with it. But just because I had to deal with something, I didn't like it, I thought it was awful. I want it to change, I want things to be better for things. So that reason's not good enough. We're trying to improve on it.
No, you're right. That's fair. I wasn't trying to say because I suffered, someone else should
Yeah,
suffer
yeah,
now too.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, that was
Yeah,
not my
yeah,
intention.
Just like, and I don't think it was, it was like, come on. Like, I wanna, so this is really hard.
This is
Really,
really,
really
really
hard.
hard. You know, some of the stuff, the comments that happen over this Zoom, they're almost not even to us. It's like there's this conversation amongst all the public commenters.
Yes.
You know, and that's kind of not the point of public comment. So,
But it's people wanting to get their vote, we are a transparent organization. We represent people, when they don't feel like they're heard, they come and make comments. So they are coming to make sure that they're heard by us and other people.
I'm sure, no, I do totally agree with you. I just
Can I ask you
think
a question?
that- Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, wait, that's okay.
it sounds like there's a want from the board to continue this for a period of time. For the month of October.
Like,
That's all-
just
that's all
exactly
you
what
can
it
do.
is, like this?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, so actually, I have a question about
Sure.
that, because I was looking at the language here. And it seems to me to say that if there's a proclaimed state of emergency and state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing, then our finding is not actually required. So I would like to get clarification from our attorney.
What it takes to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whether
Yep.
the current situation satisfies that clause, because if it does, then we actually don't have to formally take the finding. So I think we should understand whether we do
But
after formally.
I'll find
if we don't have a meeting between now and October 1st,
That's my position.
Well,
No, but it also says that we can, if we do have to make the finding, we can do that at the first meeting. Where we could do October 4th like this. If that meeting was, the first item on that agenda is to formally find that we're doing it. Which, and I don't know.
similarly to what we're doing with independent study, right?
Yeah, and I think,
We'll find out.
I didn't think I was, I've lost, but I think I'm coming around, like, initially, I don't think I was comfortable doing this, making that finding. But thinking about it, I think I actually would be comfortable. I mean, given the discussion we had earlier tonight about outdoor masks and all the other things, the thing that I really feel semi-strongly about the openness intention of the Brown Act, and I really, it doesn't feel appropriate to me right now or on October 4th to tell people that they have to come into the room to be able to make public comment.
I'm still back to the idea, it kicked in so late, and we've been doing one mode of meeting for so long that we need to communicate it better.
Well, so that's the other thing, sorry, I remembered what I wanted to say, which was basically, we haven't had anybody, at least I haven't had anybody complain that they can't come into the room with us. We've had plenty of comments saying, oh, it's so great to be able to stay home and comment while I make dinner. And so I am sensitive to things getting out of hand. I think that's why our policy says, you know, like in our board policy, it says we'll take public comment for 20 or 30 minutes. Unless we agree to extend that, which we do routinely because we believe in openness, but like, you know, that's still there. And the other thing that I wanted to say was, having listed all this thing, I think we do need to have a board policy about this. I think we need to update our policy.
About what?
Sort of about how we're going to do this kind of electronic, like this discussion that we've had here. I mean, I don't know, you'll tell us whether or not you've got some direction, but I think whatever you understand that direction to be, or if we need to have further discussions, I think we need to end up with a formal board policy that we all sign off on about how we're going to do meetings going forward. How we're going to manage electronic meetings. What's that?
Like, as long as there's still
Or
a state
in
of
a
emergency.
hybrid, like whatever it is, right? Like I think we should.
Oh, anytime there's a hybrid.
Anytime, like now that we have this, you know, now that we have AB 361, right, which has modified the Brown Act requirements, I think we should have a policy that reflects this and says formally how we're going to do it.
Okay. I'm sure that's going to be coming from CSBA. What's that? Not yet.
Well, yeah, just Friday. We'll give
them
a
another
couple
week.
more days.
So the October 4th meeting, which is our next meeting, it's going to be like this.
That's what I've heard.
I feel like that's what I've understood.
And the very first agenda item will be a determination that we can continue the meeting.
Either that, or we will hold a special meeting before September 30th for that determination.
Just a couple of comments, especially to Shelley's comment. Although I don't agree at all, at least what I understand to be a person who does not live in the district's comments, I don't think that we want to restrict ourselves to only accepting comments from meeting is supposed to be public, and members of the public are allowed to speak. And we do have an effect to people who are not part of this district. And I would not want to cut them off. I mean, so we don't have any mechanism to do that. But I don't think we should even articulate the notion that we won't listen to people who don't. And I get really, really irritated when I'm asked when I call up or something like that to comment to a legislator. What's your address? Doesn't matter what my address is. I'm a member of the public and we can comment on this particular item of legislation. We are legislating in a small way. So
I totally see your point. And I was just thinking, like, you know, have I gotten up and made, I mean, I could, you know, public comment at a Mountain View City Council meeting, for example, right? I'm not a resident of Mountain View, but I have some stake in what they do. And I feel like not everyone who's outside of our jurisdiction has a stake in what we decide. And I feel, I don't know, maybe it's just this pandemic world that's making people like spew a lot of misinformation and that kind of thing, but at least, I don't know, I totally see your point.
And fine with putting emails in. I don't think we should read them out loud.
You what? What was the second part?
I don't think we should read the emails out loud. Put them in the packet. If they're sent to, public comments and specify what item you're on, that becomes part of the record for that particular agenda. And no board members' responses is, it's just like a regular comment. Right now, I'm not comfortable in asking, allowing members of the public to not comfortable in having more than a small number of people in this room. And I think we constitute a small number of people. I don't have anything against any particular member of the public. It's just the number of them is the issue. And even if they're 6 feet apart, we could probably fit 40 people in this room. And that's, for me, it's too many right now. So I don't think we should have in-person. And I'm sorry, I misunderstood the hybrid board because the community attendance in public right now, I don't think that's the right thing to do. And I'm willing to make a determination that we are at risk.
He's only at risk for something.
So, we're not gonna say one more member.
Yes, yeah, actually, do tell us.
Yeah, so I heard that when we come back for I'll say the month of October, right? This is what we have latitude for. We will continue in this format. We'll do that for the 2 October meetings. A part of those meetings will be further refining this initial conversation we just had. I'll bring back some specific points that I pulled out of here for the board to respond to and some agreement on.
I do like Brian's idea of a separate email. Maybe it's not an email, maybe it's an online.
Yeah.
With like a word limit and stuff. I think it could be very neat and done. So. Any further comments on this agenda item? No. I forgot there's more to the agenda. Okay, moving right along. Oh, board policy updates.
Yes, so in September 20th, and we have another set of first readings for you. You can see there are about 10 or 11 policies that are updated. I did have some questions. I responded to those. But these are here again as a result of legislation, judicial decisions, or changes in CDE or State Board of Education guidance. So, as always, there'll be 2 reads. This is the first one. Take comments, and then they will return on consent at the meeting on October 4th.
Great. Members of the public, you can start raising your hands if you want to make public comment. Board members, do any of you have clarifying questions?
Given the conversation we just had, do we have to revisit EB 320? March 9th, but if not, of course,
Seriously.
Well, I guess what I would say, Steve, is that this may be coming back again.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I'll now open up for public comment, and I don't see any hands raised, so public comment is now closed. Board members, does anyone have any comments on any of these board policies?
Yes, it's on board policy 9012, board bylaw, sorry, 9012.
Yep.
Which I'd like to rename the can of worms bylaw. Because I think there are lots of issues with that. There are vague terminology in there that allows for all sorts of stuff to happen. There's some technical verbiage issues. Then there's a seeming contradiction to everything that was said beforehand. There are omissions of cases, I think, that need to be considered. Not all social media is taken into account, so I just think there's a lot of.
Do you have suggestions?
Yes, but it would be, I prefer to make them.
Okay.
I mean, time-wise, I prefer to make them to you.
Okay.
I don't mind doing it now.
No, we can set up a.
But I do want to retain the goodwill of my fellow board members.
No, we can, why don't we set up a time to talk about it? That'd be great.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to take a vote in 3 minutes to see if we can continue. Well, thanks for the minute.
10:30. 10:30.
10 to 10:30 or 10 o'clock?
10:30. We checked that out for the last time.
Okay.
We-
That- Feel like a little punchy. Any other comments?
I have just some quick notes that Jeff has seen, but on the top, special education one, BP 0430, it says grade up to kids 21 years of age. We don't educate kids up to 21 years of age, so we might want to go more like 14, 18, what? It has to do with, it's just, I feel like we have board policies that are relevant to our school district. We don't have a school district that's TK neutral. I don't care if they change the name.
Can I ask a question? Do children get pushed out because of age? Do they get pushed out because of they achieved a certain education, especially in special education? They can see where a child might be.
It could be older. I don't see it as necessarily 14, but I see 16 or something like that.
My question was.
Typically, there's, if the child's in that position, there's usually not retention in place, right? So they are grade level true to they tend to be grade level true.
So there's that. And then I have one. The work permits, we have BP 5113.2. We had grid point average in there. And so my question had to do with what is it in our grade scale, which is 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Right.
And,
Make that adjustment.
and Jeff had said 2 would be what we would put. I just wanted out there, be transparent about this. And then 6170.1, the TK policy. It says the longest TK day can be is 4 hours. So we need to find more information about that because our TK are not in compliance currently.
Right, and I think that's in, when I said to Jessica in the emails, I think that's in conflict with previous state guidance, which said that the TK program had to match the K program, right?
Yeah.
So we'll find that out and have it corrected whichever direction.
Yeah. And that's it.
Brian?
I have just one question about our immunization policy, which I think read to basically say that we will, we'll require the immunizations that the state requires, which would suggest to me that we won't require the COVID-19 vaccine unless the state does so.
Yeah, I think that's how I read it as well.
Do we have the legal authority to immunization like like it?
That's
I think they do.
Yeah.
They do, we do, but.
Yeah.
Who's this?
It's LA.
LA
There's
Unified.
several districts that are now requiring vaccination. And I don't know.
I'm not
We have-
opposed to it.
Yeah, well, I
I'm
don't
not
know if we have
opposed to it
legal
either.
authority or not, but I
Yeah.
think this policy that we're approving says that we won't.
Yeah.
So I just want to surface that for everybody.
No, I agree.
So is there any one of those board policies that we haven't gutted?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
I don't think they got it yet.
Anyway, that was just my.
You can always revise a policy.
Any other comments? Okay, let's move on to our next agenda item, board policy deletions. Jeff?
Yes, similar. You've heard this from me before. As updates are made by CSBA to various policies, some policies some expire, some get subsumed into another policy. These are a couple of those, the uniform complaint procedure and Williams. The exhibits are what are being eliminated here. Policies, but just exhibits.
If anyone has public comment, members of the public, start raising your hands now. Any clarifying questions from the board? I don't see any hands up for public comment either, so I'm closing public comment. Any further comment? Okay. All right, board and administration comments. Start with you, Zach.
Excellent. I do have a few things. So I wanted to let you know that next week on the 30th, we will be going, you remember that we're going out for the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to develop our own induction program. So next week on the 30th or whatever, a week and a half on the 30th, we are going in front of the commission to get our stage 2 institutional approval approved, which we're very excited about on the 30th. And then we'll go into stage 3, which is really the development of our program details.
In person or virtual?
It is virtual. Yep. And it sounds like it's going to be an all-day affair. We wait our turn. Hopefully before noon is what they've said. But we're very excited about that. And then I also wanted to let you know, we've just completed our first round of LPAC testing for all our brand new English language learners or students that we suspect might be English language learners. And coming up next in the process is our reclassification that usually takes place through October. So Jessica, I might hit you up for what do we want to do for our RFEP ceremony, because you did such a great job of coordinating that last spring. Yes, it's early. We're back
Better
to
than
our
a month.
normal
Anything's
timeline.
better than a month.
I know, exactly. Anyway, that's exciting. And then this Friday, we do have our first professional development day of the year for our preschool through 8th grade teachers. Our focus in elementary is really around reading intervention and math as we continue to support our implementation of San Francisco curriculum. And then our junior high folks are, we have this amazing group of junior high teachers who've been working with Karen Wilson to select some high impact, high leverage practices. And so they'll be leading the charge for our junior high teachers on Friday. So we're very excited about that.
I'll pass.
No.
I went to a couple PTA meetings. I went to the Oak PTA meeting that was inside in person. And they did Zoom to people at home too. And then Dr. Bullis on Friday outside. And they're parking very loud. But it was a good time. It's good to be meeting in person. It's good to be seeing people. So, and it was good to hear them back to normal, right? Like, we're back to normal. It's some semblance of normal here, but they're back to normal. Things are going on as planned at our schools in the best way we can. So that was nice. And went to the Santa Clara County Democratic Party Victory Dinner. I saw Shally at on Friday, and that was, celebratory because there actually was a victory that week.
Ryan?
Nope.
I have nothing as well. So I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting. Thanks, everyone. That was